Chapter 696. Laro-san, Lord Bear wants to ask you. In broad daylight, a sword mistress beat up ordinary people and blinded them. What crime is that? How many years are you going to be sentenced to? Even though all 6 of his underlings were lying on the ground, Lord Bear's expression did not change as he calmly asked his underling. Replying to Lord Bear, either in Ear Prison for 20 years, or in Beacon Fortress for 10 years, or 3 years at the front line of Shanghai Pass. This subordinate, who was known as Old Third, was rolling on the ground in pain. When he answered, he was out of breath, intermittently, and in extreme pain. However, he still managed to answer Big Bear's question. Young man, don't be too impulsive. Now you know what it means to be impulsive. Lord Bear smiled proudly. All right. Eat as much as you can before the disciplinary committee comes. Once you're in there, you won't be able to eat these good things anymore. I'm from Yuzhang City. Your Yangjing City disciplinary committee can't control me, Guhan replied calmly. Sure enough, newbies are the most annoying. I always have to explain so many things to you. Lord Bear knocked on the table again and said fiercely, listen carefully. This is Yangjing City, not your Yuzhang City. No matter how arrogant your Yuzhang City sword-bearers are, people in Yangjing City have to abide by Yangjing City's laws and accept the jurisdiction of our Yangjing City Disciplinary Committee. Even if your old man Liu Lei comes, he won't be able to take you away from Yangjing City Disciplinary Committee. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. Guhan rubbed his forehead in pain. Laro-san, I want to ask you, if a sword-bearer kills an ordinary person, what will be the punishment? This. Laro-san hesitated for a moment before replying, should be in Shanghai Pass for 6 years. Lord Bear's underling answered Guhan's question in a muddle-headed manner. He didn't notice anything wrong. But Lord Bear, this old fox, felt a chill run down his spine. He suddenly remembered something his father once told him. The most dangerous people in this world are the elderly and children. One is about to die, the other is not afraid of death. Good, you're amazing. Let's go. Big Bear made a prompt decision. He felt that he couldn't continue acting tough. He didn't even care about his 6 subordinates who were wailing on the ground. He immediately stood up and hurriedly left the private room. Unfortunately, he was still 1 step too late. An invisible sword light flashed, and Big Bear, who was in the middle of running, suddenly stopped. His body stopped moving, but his head continued to move forward due to inertia. Finally, it fell 7 or 8 meters away from his body. The entire private room was completely silent at this moment. After 3 or 4 seconds of silence, the waiter in Cheongsam who had been waiting in the private room suddenly let out a shocking scream. The tray in his hand fell to the ground, and he raised his hands and frantically ran out of the private room. Master, why did you kill again? Looking at the headless corpse on the ground, Lu Shihua smiled bitterly. Master, you just finished judging a case of beheading. Can't you stop for a while? In the end, on your first day in Beijing, you beheaded another person. Aren't you looking for trouble for yourself? It's no big deal. If I don't kill this kind of person, who knows how many more pitiful sword-bearers will die in the future? Guhan curled his lips. Right, let me correct you. The one who killed was you, not me. Master, although I'm your disciple, you can't just push the blame to me like this. Lu Shihua heard Guhan say this, and his whole body was in a mess. Guhan didn't care about Lu Shihua's confusion. Instead, he said to his 3 sword maidens, it's finally quiet now. You guys eat while it's hot. Other than Lu Shihua, who had no appetite at all, Guhan's sword maidens all had good appetites. They ate a little more than usual. After all, they had suffered for a few days on the armored hover train. About 5 or 6 minutes later, another group of people rushed into the private room in a panic. The ones in the lead were the 3 sword-bearers who had always followed his sword maidens. A lightning bolt symbol was drawn on their foreheads. This represented their identity as members of the discipline committee. Who was the one who killed him? Stand out. The leading member of the discipline committee for discipline inspection scolded. Wait, my sword maidens haven't filled their stomachs yet. An extremely calm voice answered him. In a common room with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms, Song Fei, who hadn't seen her in a long time, was humming a song that only she could understand. She was fiddling with a cold dish in her hands. Beside the cold dish, there were more than 10 plates filled with all kinds of delicious food. Ding dong! A crisp doorbell rang. Song Fei didn't go to open the door. Instead, she pressed a button on her personal terminal. The door that was more than 10 meters away automatically opened. Then, a figure rushed in. Ling, what's the rush? My food isn't ready yet. Song Fei didn't look at Liuanian Ling. She knew immediately that the person who entered her room was Liuanian Ling. She was her only friend in the whole of Yangjing City. Other than Liuanian Ling, no one else would come looking for her. Fei, why did you prepare so many dishes? Liuanian Ling's attention was attracted by the dishes on the table. You call this a lot? I still have more than 10 dishes in the kitchen. You don't know, Qingpin might have eaten all of them. Even if I prepared 100 dishes, it wouldn't be enough for her. Song Fei smiled happily at the mention of Qingpin. She hadn't smiled like this for a long time. Ever since fleeting time wooden fish forcefully brought her back to Yangjing City with the giant void hand, Song Fei hadn't had any effect on her for a long time. Especially when she found out that Guhan was missing, she became extremely depressed and annoyed. Every other day, she would want to leave Yangjing City and return to Yuzhang City. However, the problem was that the armored levitating train had not been opened yet. If Song Fei wanted to return to Yuzhang City, she would have to drive the levitating airship alone. One could imagine how dangerous it would be. If not for Liuanian Ling's special instructions to send people to protect Song Fei in secret and stop her at the city gates, Song Fei might still be alive. In the end, Liuanian Ling even stopped doing her own things and stayed at Song Fei's temporary residence to accompany her. She made sure that Song Fei would not do anything stupid. 10 days later, Song Fei was pleasantly surprised to hear that Guhan had reappeared. Song Fei finally smiled through her tears and walked out of her despair. When Song Fei found out that Guhan had followed the team from Yuzhang University to Yangjing City, she was so happy that she almost jumped for joy. She would check on the armored levitating train every hour to confirm Guhan's location. Once she was certain that Guhan would arrive in Yangjing City, she immediately prepared a table of delicacies for Guhan and Qingpin. That's true. No amount of food will be enough for a cute girl like Qingpin. But there's no need for too many tricks to deal with a cute girl like Qingpin. You just have to prepare 20 plates of red braised pork, 20 plates of dongpa pork, and 20 plates of chili stir-fried pork. That'll be enough. A loving smile appeared on his face when he thought of Qingpin's adorable face. Liuanian Ling regretted not choosing Qingpin as her sword mistress at the sword burial grounds in Yuzhang City. Instead, she ended up with an unreliable girl like Yixian. Even now, Liuanian Ling did not dare to release Yixian. God knows if Yixian would go on a killing spree in Yangjing City. Wait a minute. What the hell am I thinking? How did I forget my original goal? Liuanian Ling slapped Song Fei's butt. Alright, Madam Fei. That bastard Guhan will not be able to taste your food today. What? Song Fei's hand that was peeling the century egg trembled. How is that possible? I just spoke to Guhan this morning. He said that he'll arrive in Yangjing City before noon. Did something happen to him during the last part of his journey? No, he's already in Yangjing City. Liuanian Ling yanked the apron off Song Fei's body and slapped the century egg out of his hand. I'm telling you, he's in the core zone. He's less than a kilometer away from you. Come with me, we have to meet him immediately. Why are we leaving? It's as if I want to see him. Song Fei blushed. Besides, I've already given him my address. He promised to look for me. He can't look for you now. He can't even protect himself. Liuanian Ling had a troubled look on her face. He's always been a troublemaker. He did something like this as soon as he arrived in Yangjing City. I can't even clean up his mess in time. What's happening? What's going on? Hurry up and tell me. Song Fei came to a sudden realization, and grabbed Fleeting Ling's hand with a worried look on his face. Alright, don't ask me anymore. I can't explain it to you in a few words. Just come with me. With that, he pulled Song Fei out of the door. Did you really do it? In the discipline committee's interrogation room, Ji Han and Lu Shihua sat together on a chair. Opposite them was a discipline committee member whose face was filled with disbelief. According to the rules of the Commission for Discipline Inspection, the Commission for Discipline Inspection did not have the authority to judge sword ladies, so in the interrogation room, all of Ji Han's ship ladies turned back into their sword forms, sheathed in Ji Han's scabbards. But the person that the discipline committee was interrogating was not Gu Han, but Lu Shihua, who was fiddling with his fingers beside Gu Han. During the interrogation, Lu Shihua faintly admitted, "It's me, I killed that elder bear." The discipline committee member slammed the table. Only an idiot would believe that Lu Shihua was the murderer. Chapter 697. Did you really kill him? The member of the Discipline Inspection Committee slammed the table with all his might. Little girl, it's a good thing to respect your teacher, but don't put all the blame on yourself. There are some things you can't handle. Do you know what punishment you'll receive for taking the blame? If you're a sword wielder, you'll have to go to the Shanghai Pass frontline and stay there for 6 years. If you're a normal person, you'll have to pay with your life. The disciplinary committee member had already checked beforehand. Lu Shihua was indeed a normal person. He didn't have any characteristics of a sword wielder. If Lu Shihua killed someone, then Lu Shihua would have to pay with his life. Therefore, the disciplinary committee member was a good person. He didn't want Lu Shihua to take the blame for a sword wielder and lose his life for nothing. At the same time, the disciplinary committee member looked down on Gu Han even more. A sword wielder actually used his normal disciple to take the blame for him. Was this something a noble sword wielder should do? Unfortunately, the disciplinary committee member didn't have any evidence to prove that the murderer was Gu Han. When he requested to access the cloud data stored in these people's terminals, the response he got was that these people's terminals had been destroyed before the murder. There was no evidence at all. The disciplinary committee member then started to check the terminals of Boss Bear and the others. He was shocked to find that all of their terminals had been destroyed. They had been sliced into 8 pieces by some kind of sharp weapon, and all the information inside had been destroyed. As for the testimony of the blind Boss Bear's subordinates, they couldn't be trusted. They were all blind, so how could they see who killed Boss Bear? Naturally, the evidence couldn't be used. Therefore, the disciplinary committee member could only use the most helpless interrogation method to try and force Lu Shihua to confess who the real murderer was. "Don't say any more. I killed him," Lu Shihua said weakly. Do you think the disciplinary committee members are all idiots? The disciplinary committee member slapped the table again. Then, his terminal projected many pictures. Some of the pictures were of Boss Bear's corpse, and some were pictures of the broken terminals. Look at these wounds. Look at these sword wounds. Is this something an ordinary person can do? This can only be done by a highly skilled swordswoman. The judge pointed his finger at Gu Han's nose. Is it your swordswoman who did this? You better tell me the truth. Don't try to use your disciple as a scapegoat. You can't fool me. Shihua, show him what you've got. Gu Han ignored the judge's question and turned to Shihua. Yes, Master. Lu Shihua took out an ordinary sword from his dimensional pocket. Before the judge could react, the sword slashed right under his nose. An icy chill caused the hair on the tip of the judge's nose to stand on end. What do you mean? How dare you attack the Commission for Discipline Inspection? The Morals and Discipline Committee member's voice inevitably trembled. In that instant just now, he felt as if the god of death had brushed past his shoulder. Let him see for himself, Gu Han said to Lu Shihua. So, Lu Shihua brought the tip of his sword to the judge's eyes. The judge looked down and was shocked to find that there were a few black dots on the tip of the sword. What is this? The judge asked in confusion. This is the blackhead on your nose. If you don't believe me, you can touch it with your hand and see if it's still there, Lu Shihua said with a straight face. The judge immediately touched his nose. As expected, his originally rough nose had become very smooth. The black dots that were a little prickly were all gone. This woman can use her sword to remove the blackheads on my nose without causing any damage to my nose. This person's swordsmanship is too terrifying. Is she really an ordinary person? She can't be a swordswoman, right? The judge muttered to himself. He just realized that Lu Shihua's sword was to prove that she had the ability to use the sword that killed Big Bear, even if she was just an ordinary person. This sword not only shocked the judge, but it also shocked Guhan, who was watching from the side. Guhan's original intention was for Lu Shihua to shave off some of the hair on the guy's nose. He didn't expect Lu Shihua to shave off the guy's blackhead. Although the difference between the two wasn't like the difference between heaven and earth, it was like the difference between a car and a bicycle. Lu Shihua's swordsmanship was improving too quickly. Originally, Guhan estimated that Lu Shihua would need at least 2 years to catch up to his swordsmanship. Now, it seemed like 1.5 years would be enough. Well, now you can prove that I was the one who killed him. Lu Shihua put his sword back into the scabbard, and his voice was still weak. You're so stubborn. The judge was completely helpless. At the same time, he realized that Lu Shihua and the swordsman's background was not ordinary. They didn't have to worry about what would happen after they killed someone. All right, if there's no problem, sign this confession and wait for the court's trial. The judge handed the confession that he had just written to Lu Shihua. Lu Shihua took the confession and looked at it carefully. There were no mistakes. Just as she was about to sign her name, Guhan held her hand. We've answered all our questions. Can we go now? Ji Yuhan said to the judge. That's right. Let's go. Leave. The judge snorted coldly. You can leave, but your apprentice can't. She's now our suspect. She'll have to go through the court's trial to decide her fate. You don't have the right to judge her. With a wave of Guhan's finger, the confession in front of Lu Shihua was shredded into fingernail-sized pieces of paper. The judge couldn't believe his eyes. Was this really something a human could do? Lu Shihua's sword had already amazed the judge, but it was still within the realm of human imagination. But Guhan's sword energy felt like it was at the level of an immortal. No wonder this swordsman is her master. His swordsmanship is indeed qualified to be her master. Wait. A swordsman that can use sword energy, could it be that this swordsman is a spirit sword level swordsman? After entering the interrogation room, the discipline committee only registered Lu Shihua's identity. Guhan refused to register his own identity and sword level, so the judge still hadn't figured out what sword level Guhan was. It wasn't until he saw this that the judge began to suspect that Guhan was a spirit sword level swordsman. A spirit sword level swordsman from Yuzhang City came to Yangjing City to kill someone? This matter would probably give the higher-ups of Yangjing City a headache. Who knew how to solve this matter? It might even become a big dispute between Yuzhang City and Yangjing City. At this time, the judge began to feel lucky that Lu Shihua took the initiative to take the blame. If the murderer was an ordinary person, then it would be much easier, and the way to deal with it would be much more flexible. But this swordsman just said that he didn't have the right to judge his disciple. What was going on? How could he not have the right to judge an ordinary person? Just when the judge was about to ask for clarification, the interrogation room's door was suddenly violently pushed open. Under the lead of a bald old man, 2 graceful and beautiful women walked in. Mr. Wang, I haven't finished the interrogation yet. Do you want to wait a little longer? The judge said to the bald old man. Okay, there's nothing to judge. Let them go. Mr. Wang said hurriedly, as if he couldn't wait to chase these people away. But Mr. Wang, they are all murder suspects. I can't just leave like this. The judge felt very strange. Although the murderer hadn't been confirmed, one of these 2 people must be the murderer. There was no doubt about this. How could he let them go before he figured out the matter? Didn't you hear what I said? Let them go. You don't have to worry about this matter anymore, Mr. Wang said forcefully. Then, the judge watched as Guhan and Lu Shihua followed the 2 women out of the interrogation room. Finally, he sat down on the chair dispiritedly. After a few minutes, Mr. Wang walked into the interrogation room again. When he saw the judge sitting there dejectedly, he could only smile bitterly, pat him on the shoulder, and then sit next to him. Mr. Wang, what the hell is going on? The judge raised his head and asked in confusion. Can't you see it? We can't afford to provoke the background of these 2 people. I can only ask them to leave here quickly, or else we'll both be trapped. Mr. Wang replied in confusion. Background. Background. If we really want to talk about background, there's no one in the world who has a stronger background than us. The more the judge thought about it, the angrier he got. He pouted and said, "We are the Discipline Inspection Commission, which is directly under the management of the Yangjing City Sword Committee. His Majesty Hao Tian is our background. Who do we have to be afraid of? I know that even without you saying it, but there are some people in this world who have a stronger background than our Majesty Hao Tian," Mr. Wang said as if he was pointing out something. "But you don't have to worry about the procedure. The identity of the girl who killed the murderer isn't simple. Even if we don't care about her background and follow the procedure, the two of us can't interrogate her. Only the Sword Committee has the right to judge her. Only the Sword Committee has the right to judge her." The judge was confused. Is this woman the chairman of the Sword Committee or the master of the sword garret? Chapter 698. You really know how to make trouble for me. Chopping off someone's head on your first day in Yangjing. Do you think this is your Yuzhang city? Liuyan Ling rolled her eyes at Guhan. I've even thought of a nickname for you. From now on, I'll call you Jiyu Beheading. Whatever. As long as you're happy. When he did not dare to answer, his calm tone almost made Liuyan Ling die of anger. All right, I shouldn't have saved you. I let you reveal your identity in the interrogation room, and then you'll be on the front page of all the newspapers in Yangjing City tomorrow. You should be satisfied now. Thank you, Ling. Guhan suddenly stopped and grabbed both of Liuyan Ling's hands. He looked into Liuyan Ling's big watery eyes and said, "This thank you is sincere." "Well, it's good that you thank me." Liuyan Ling took her hands out of Guhan's hands and touched Guhan's cheeks. "If you really want to thank me, then be my man. I won't treat you badly." Ahem. Song Yifei could not stand it anymore. "What do you mean by be your man? What should I do?" "Ling, Guhan just arrived here and spent the whole afternoon in the Discipline Inspection Commission. Don't bother him anymore. Let's go home and have dinner." Song Yifei was eager to ask Guhan to go home with her. After all, she still had a table full of dishes on the table. Song Yifei remembered that he had once told his mother about his troubles, but his mother first scolded him for being shameless and then told him this. "Yifei, there is a saying passed down from my ancestors, if you want a man's heart, you must have a man's stomach. Back then, your father was conquered by the delicacies your mother made. If you really like that boy, then you should learn how to cook. When you're half as good as your mother, that man will never be able to leave you." Although Song Yifei would rather eat instant noodles every day than eat his mother's dishes, this suggestion was very constructive. Therefore, during the days when Song Yifei stayed in Yangjing City, he spent the rest of his time learning how to cook, except for fighting with Yuan Ku. That was why there was a table full of dishes in Song Yifei's home. At this time, Song Yifei naturally hoped that Guhan would come home as soon as possible so that he could have a taste of his cooking and see if he would never leave him. "Yes. You don't know this, Jiyu Han, but our Yifei has been preparing for this since the day before yesterday. She's already bought a few dozen pounds of pork, and her hands have been cut by the kitchen knife. If you don't try Yifei's cooking, you'll be letting her down." Liuyan Ling also helped him at the right time, which made Song Yifei feel very grateful, and his impression of Liuyan Ling improved a lot. "Besides, I want to have a good talk with you tonight. What happened after we left that day? I'm completely baffled by the report you sent over from Yuzhang City. Others may not know, but I know it best. In the end, it was a primordial level Yuan Ku, which was definitely not something that Liu Lei could deal with alone." Liuyan Ling pinched Guhan's waist hard. "Tell me the truth, don't lie to me." How could Guhan answer this question? Should he say that he had become Jiyu Shenyuan and used the power of the Shenyuan sword to destroy Ancestor Ming? Even if Guhan told the truth, Liuyan Ling probably would not believe it. Guhan laughed and suddenly asked Liuyan Ling, "Ling, I have a question for you, but it's a bit abrupt. If you don't want to answer me, I won't force you. There's no need to be abrupt between us. Ask whatever you want. I will definitely answer you," Liuyan Ling said with a smile. "Well, I want to ask you, Do you still have severed black hair in your family? Guhan finally asked the most important question in his heart. Song Yifei and Lu Shihua, on the other hand, were confused. Lu Shihua was curious. After all, she had just entered the world of sword-bearers, so she did not know much about the common knowledge among sword-bearers. She did not know what severed black hair was. On the other hand, Song Yifei was confused. She did not know why Guhan mentioned severed black hair. Could it be that Guhan wanted to get a sword lady? Yes. Liuyan Ling gave an affirmative answer. She immediately asked, "Why are you asking this? Do you not want to be poor, or do you not want to be the heavenly reliance? Oh, right, you seem to have become a famous sword-bearer. You have never told me who your sword lady is. I want to replace my famed sword sword mistress," Ji Yuhan answered honestly. On the armored hover train, Guhan thought about severed black hair for a long time and decided to get it from the Liuyan family. Currently, Guhan knew that there were two ways to get severed black hair. The first was through the Liuyan family, and the second was through the challenge in Moscow. Moscow was thousands of kilometers away from Yangjing City. There was no armored hover train between the two cities. If he wanted to get to Moscow, he could only rely on a hover car to get there. The round trip would take at least 2 months. In addition, the 8 academies meeting in Yangjing City would take half a month. The time needed was too long. More importantly, Guhan did not know anything about the Moscow base. He did not know what kind of test he had to pass to get severed black hair. So, after thinking about it deeply, Moscow was the only option. Guhan's first goal was to get severed black hair from the Liuyan family. After all, the Liuyan family was on the edge of Yangjing City. It would only take him half a day to get there. Moreover, there was another great advantage in choosing the Liuyan family, Guhan and Liuyan Ling's relationship. Although it would seem like he was relying on a woman, Guhan planned to use his relationship with Liuyan Ling to gain the favor of the Liuyan family and obtain the precious severed black hair. Since he had decided to get severed black hair from the Liuyan family, Liuyan Ling was a link that he could not bypass. Liuyan Ling would definitely ask him why he wanted severed black hair. Of course, Guhan could easily make up a lie to answer her, but the lie would be exposed sooner or later. If Guhan wanted to maintain a good relationship with Liuyan Ling, he could not lie to Liuyan Ling about this. At the very least, he had to give her an answer that was 80% true and 20% false. Therefore, Guhan told Liuyan Ling the reason why he needed severed black hair with 80% true and 20% false. During the invasion, I had no choice but to find a famed sword maiden to coordinate with me in order to help master fight. However, in the game, I had already promised my famed sword maiden that I would coordinate with her in real life and free her from the shackles of the game. I had to fulfill my promise, so I needed to sever the black hair. You're really impressive. You managed to coordinate with a famed sword maiden successfully. If the other sword bearers who were stuck at treasured sword level heard what you said, they would probably want to strangle you to death with both hands. Liuyan Ling was speaking the truth. There were many treasured sword level sword bearers who had tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of sword essences in their bodies. They had tried to coordinate with hundreds or even hundreds of famed sword maidens, but they could not find a famed sword maiden that could coordinate with them. Yet, Guhan had succeeded with just a random one. If those treasured sword level sword bearers heard this, they would definitely die from anger. There's another serious problem. Liuyan Ling's expression suddenly turned serious. Are you really worthy of your current famed sword maiden by doing this? Using the black hair to sever the sword mark between you and her is a great humiliation to the sword maiden. If you don't do it properly, you might end up like... Liuyan Ling suddenly stopped at this point. A strange expression unknowingly appeared on her face, as if her words had touched upon something extremely embarrassing. In any case, you have to carefully consider this matter. If it seriously hurts the sword maiden's pride, you absolutely cannot do it unless it's absolutely necessary. For a sword bearer to use the black hair to sever the sword mark between themselves and a sword maiden, this was undoubtedly an extreme humiliation to the sword maiden. It would also destroy her pride. This was just like how a woman in ancient times would be divorced by her husband. Once this happened, the woman would most likely not be able to live on. This was because their pride had been fatally insulted. They had already been abandoned and despised by their husbands. It was the same for a sword maiden. If things went wrong, the sword maiden might enter a state of eternal hibernation, and from then on, she would no longer be willing to synchronize with humans. If worse came to worst, she would end up like a certain sword maiden in the past, and the consequences would still be severe until now. Therefore, when Liuan Ling heard about this matter, her first reaction was to dissuade Gu Han from doing this. There's no need to think about it. I, Gu Han, have already promised her, and I will definitely fulfill my promise. Liuan Ling could hear how resolute Gu Han's answer was, and she could not help but be curious. Who is the famed sword maiden in your game? If it's possible, let me meet her in the game and explain to her. I'll ask her to give up on this promise. After all, it's just a game. I can't let the game affect the sword maiden in reality and cause serious consequences in reality. If it really doesn't work, I'll send her consciousness fragment into hibernation and let her wait for her real master to come in her sleep. That's the best outcome. Liuan Ling's intention was to let King Yu's consciousness fragment enter a state of hibernation. Liuan Ling even planned to secretly erase this fragment of King Yu's consciousness. Although this was a very cruel thing to the King of Yu, it was the most correct choice for humans. This way, Gu Han would be freed from this promise, and he would not use the black hair to destroy a sword maiden's pride. Chapter 699. Ling, this matter is very complicated, and I can't tell you the details. You just need to know that I need to get the black hair to get a sword mistress. Otherwise, I'll live in guilt for the rest of my life. I can't let her down. Gu Han's reply to Liuan Ling's persuasion was very simple, so simple that Liuan Ling couldn't find any words to persuade him. All right then, although we're friends, I have to tell you that the black hair is too precious. It's not up to me to decide whether to give it to you. It has to be decided by my grandfather. The most I can do is introduce you. You'll have to rely on yourself for the rest. Liuan Ling gave up on persuading Gu Han. However, her next words made it clear that she wouldn't help Gu Han too much on this matter. She was only going to introduce him. However, this was already a very important role. It was practically impossible for ordinary people to meet the previous family head of the Liuan family, who was the person in charge of the Liuan family. Only when one became a spirit sword wielder could they request to visit the Liuan family. As for whether the Liuan family would be willing to meet them, that was not certain. We'll talk about the black hair later. Let's go eat first. Liuan Ling said. No, I have to go now. This matter can't be delayed. Gu Han suddenly said. Why is that? It's almost 5 in the afternoon. Even if you leave now, it'll be dark by the time you reach the Liuan family. My grandfather won't see you then. Liuan Ling was confused. If I leave now, I'll be able to see your grandfather tomorrow morning. But if I leave tomorrow, I'm afraid I'll only be able to see your grandfather tomorrow afternoon. There's a difference of half a day. It's enough for me to make a trip back to Yangjing City. Gu Han said hurriedly. Is half a day that important to you? Liuan Ling was even more confused when she heard Gu Han's words. Then why did you stay in the 4th ring for so long this morning? If you left at that time, you might have already seen my grandfather. I don't know why either. When I was in the interrogation room just now, I had an ominous feeling in my heart. I must get my hands on the black hair severing as soon as possible. Gu Han's voice actually trembled a little. Just like what Gu Han had said, when he was in the interrogation room just now, his heart inexplicably fluctuated, as if something very important was being taken away by someone else. Gu Han instinctively thought of the King of Yu, Go Jian Jian, who was currently in the Sword Pavilion in Yangjing City. He did not want to delay any longer. Ridiculous. Liuan Ling glared at Gu Han with dissatisfaction. She instinctively wanted to reject Gu Han. But on second thought, if they set off tonight, wouldn't Gu Han be able to stay at his house for the night? Fleeting Time's body heated up at the thought of this, and his words of rejection became something else. All right then, I'll give it to you. I'll just work a little harder, as if I owed you in my previous life. Song Yifei had been listening to the conversation between Gu Han and Liuan Ling silently. She wanted to interrupt, but she had no idea how. She only knew a little about the black hair severing. Moreover, the black hair severing was from Liuan Ling's family. Song Yifei's family did not have such a treasure. No matter how much she said, it would be useless. How could she help Gu Han at all? If only I had the green hair severing sword. Song Yifei thought silently, but it was just a thought. She knew that she could not possibly have such a precious thing. However, Song Yifei did not expect that the two of them would actually decide to rush to the Liuan clan overnight while they were talking. Gu Han, why don't you guys eat before you leave? I've prepared a big table at home. Song Yifei said weakly. Oh, Yifei, you can eat by yourself. Don't wait for me. I'll try your cooking if I have the chance in the future. Gu Han did not understand Song Yifei's thoughts. However, even if Gu Han did understand, his answer would not change. All right. I wish you all the best. What else could Song Yifei do? She could only say reluctantly. Shihua, you can go with Yifei for now. Stay at her place for now. I'll come to see you when I get back. Gu Han entrusted Shihua to Song Yifei, then jogged with Liuan Ling towards the nearest train station. Bastard. Song Yifei silently shed two thin tears as she watched Gu Han and Liuan Ling leave. Why can't I coordinate with the king of Yu, Go Jian Jian? In a sword pavilion that occupied a much larger area than the sword pavilion in Yuzhang City, Zhu Elvran quarreled with a waiter. There was a glass cover beside him, which protected the real king of Yu, Go Jian Jian. Lord Swordsman, I've already explained that the king of Yu's Gojian sword is not within the scope of the sword maiden that you can synchronize with. If you want to synchronize with the king of Yu's Gojian sword, you must obtain the approval of our pavilion master. The waiter explained patiently, but there was a hint of mockery on his face, as if he was mocking Ku Rokin for overestimating himself. How could this be? I clearly saw that person touch the king of Yu's Gojian sword. Did he also get the Lord Pavilion Master's approval? Ku Rokin's face was full of anger. That lord is different from you. He is the sword-bearer of our Swallow capital city. Naturally, he can touch the king of Yu's Gojian sword without permission. But you're different. You're a sword-bearer from Yuzhang City, so you need to get permission from our pavilion master before you can touch some of the sword maidens. Nonsense. How come I've never heard of this rule before? Ku Rokin was even more furious. Our Yuzhang City has never had such a rule. When have your people ever come to synchronize with the sword maidens of our sword pavilion? We've never stopped you and allowed you to synchronize with them. Why is it that when it comes to us, we have to get permission? Lord Swordsman, please don't be angry. This is a new rule that was set half a month ago. It's normal that you don't know about it, the waiter said with a smile. Perhaps you don't know about it, but our sword pavilion master took over half a month ago. The current sword pavilion master is Sword Immortal Tian Hen. Our Sword Immortal Tian Hen said that Yuzhang City is on the decline. It would be a waste to hand over such a good sword maiden to Yuzhang City. It's better to leave it with the sword bearers of our Swallow capital city. That way, it'll be worth it. Ku Rokin had heard about Sword Immortal Tian Hen from the sword bearers of Swallow capital city when they were eating. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was the disciple of Sword Immortal Six Paths, the original sword pavilion master of Swallow capital city. 18 days ago, he synchronized with the sword maiden of Immortal Sword Tier and became an Immortal Sword Tier swordbearer. He was also the first Immortal Sword Tier swordbearer this year. As a result, Swallow capital city had a total of 7 Immortal Sword Tier swordbearers, and the total number of Immortal Sword Tier swordbearers returned to 18, filling the gap left by Sword Immortal by Stallion's death. The total number of sword tier swordbearers in Swallow capital city was more than 1/3 of the total number of the 8 base cities. Compared to the pitiful one person in Yuzhang City, Swallow capital city's strength had reached a terrifying level. The waiter continued, although Sword Immortal Tian Hen's words are a little harsh, they are all true. Your Yuzhang City is really getting worse. Not only is there only one Immortal Sword Tier swordbearer left, but I heard that you've recently made an ordinary person the Sword Pavilion Master. This is really too much. It's a complete disgrace to the 8 base cities as well as the Sword Pavilion. When Sword Immortal Tian Hen heard this news, He immediately issued this order. Sword Immortal Tian Hen said that since you don't care about the Sword Pavilion, why don't you hand over all the Sword Maidens in the Sword Pavilion and let Swallow Capital City keep them together? As long as you're willing to hand over all the Sword Maidens in the Sword Pavilion, Sword Immortal Tian Hen can revoke this rule and everyone can go on as usual. Otherwise, the people of Yuzhang City are not allowed to touch the Sword Maidens ranked 800 or above in the Ancient Sword Record, 400 or above in the Treasured Sword Record, and 100 or above in the Famed Sword Record. Ku Rokin was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It turned out that all of this was on Guhan. If he hadn't stubbornly appointed Lu Shihua as the Sword Pavilion Master, Swallow Capital City's Sword Pavilion wouldn't have prevented him from synchronizing with the King of Yu, Go Jian Jian. You're giving me ridiculous orders. This order is against the Sword Bearers Convention. I'm going to complain to the Sword Council. Ku Rokin's eyes were about to spit fire. The Sword Bearers Convention states that no city's sword pavilion can restrict the sword bearers of other cities based on the affiliation of the sword bearers. This order of yours is a serious violation of the Sword Bearers Convention. You'll regret it. You've memorized the Sword Bearers Convention quite well. The waiter muttered softly. Don't be so anxious. Sword Immortal Tian Hen didn't say that you couldn't synchronize with him at all. He just didn't want those sword bearers with no strength and only dumb luck to obtain those powerful sword ladies. It's not impossible for you to synchronize with the King of Yu, Go Jian Jian. As long as you can defeat anyone on this list, we'll allow you to synchronize with the King of Yu, Go Jian 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 Jian. The waiter handed a booklet to Ku Rokin. Ku Rokin hurriedly flipped open the booklet and saw that there were 20 names on it. What's the meaning of this? Ku Rokin asked. These are the top 20 sword bearers of Swallow Capital City. As long as you can defeat any one of them, we'll acknowledge your strength, the waiter explained. Why didn't you give me this booklet in the first place? Did you decide not to tell me? Ku Rokin asked angrily. I'd have given it to you for free. The waiter chuckled. These are all peerless experts. It's fine if you just look at their names. You can only dream about defeating them. I was afraid that you'd feel even more despair if you saw them, so I didn't give them to you. Chapter 700. Since ancient times, all the King of Swords families had settled in the base cities. They were located in the safest location in the base cities, protected by an independent dimensional barrier. For example, Mount Di in Yuzhang City or Lake Di in Yangjing City. There was only one family that didn't have their base of operations in any of the 8 base cities. Instead, they had built their base on a mountain. The original name of the mountain was unknown. Nowadays, people called it Lionian Mountain. The most amazing thing about Lionian Mountain was that there was a huge lake in the center. The lake water soaked the entire mountainside. As the saying went, mountains were connected to water, and water was connected to the mountain. There was a mountain in the water, and there was water in the mountain. Back then, the sword ancestor had seen the beautiful scenery of this place, so he had built the foundation of the Liu Nian family here. The Liu Nian family estate was heavily guarded. Patrols could be seen patrolling the area from the middle of the mountain. The entire hill was surrounded by a dimensional barrier. There was only a single door at the entrance to the mountain that people could enter. Guhan observed the patrols carefully. He was surprised to find that although they all looked human, only some of them were swordsmen. Most of them were Yuan Ku filled with dimensional auras. Don't you think it's amazing? There are more Yuan Ku in my family than there are humans. Lionian Ling could see the disbelief on Guhan's face. She explained proudly, these are the friends of the Lionian family in the past 1,000 years. The Lionian family helped them become free people. Some of them are willing to go to the free cities, but some are willing to stay with the Lionian family and live a peaceful life. Over time, our family has gathered so many friends. Don't worry. They have lived peacefully with us for 900 years. They definitely do not have any bad intentions. They are our most trusted friends. However, although they have become free people, they are not willing to fight with Yuan Ku. So, unless Yuan Ku attacks the Lionian family, they will not do anything, Lionian Ling explained. Guhan nodded. This was similar to Zhe Tianjiandi's 3 Egyptian gods. However, Zhe Tianjiandi used coercion, while the Lionian family's methods were much better. They made these free people stay with them willingly. Ji Yuan glanced over indifferently and saw many famous Yuan Zhans in history. These Yuan Zhans had once defeated the human sword-bearers and were the most difficult opponents for the human race to deal with. However, they gradually disappeared from history. Guhan thought they were dead. He didn't expect them to live in the Lionian family. These were all very powerful Yuan Ku. There was no lack of U-rank Yuan Ku. If these Yuan Ku were willing to help humans, humans would have a much better life. Unfortunately, these Yuan Ku were only here because of their friendship with the Lionian family. They were not willing to help humans. Miss. At the gate, 2 guards saw Lionian Ling and immediately greeted her respectfully. Guhan noticed that these 2 guards were not swordsmen. They were just ordinary people. With the Lionian family's style, they did not use practitioners as guards. Instead, they used 2 ordinary people. Guhan had to think about the meaning behind this. Sorry, you can't go in. Just as Guhan was about to follow Lionian Ling into the Lionian mountain, the 2 guards suddenly blocked Guhan's way. Guhan silently took a step back. It was best not to say anything at a time like this. He would let Lionian Ling handle this kind of thing. I know the rules, but this is my friend. Can't I bring a friend home? Lionian Ling asked the 2 guards. Miss, this is the first time you've brought an outsider back, so you might not know the rules very well. According to the rules of the Lionian family, unless they are swordsmen above spirit sword rank, descendants of the Sword Emperor family, or special permission from the family head, they are not allowed to enter the Lionian family. The friends you brought in before were all descendants of the Sword Emperor family, so we never stopped them. The friend you brought isn't a descendant of any aristocratic family, so we stopped him, the 2 guards explained in a methodical manner. Lionian Ling didn't say anything. Just as the 2 guards said, she really didn't know the rules. This feeling was terrible. Lionian Ling felt like she didn't have any face left in front of Guhan. Then I'll send a message to my grandfather and ask him to let him in. Lionian Ling said angrily. The great-grandfather's words are useless. Unexpectedly, the guard retorted, according to the rules of the Lionian family, only the family head's words are effective. The great-grandfather has already stepped down from the position of family head, so the family head has to come personally to bring him in. What did you say? It's not like you don't know that my dad is in Moscow right now, helping my mom. How can he get by? Lionian Ling was even more furious. Then miss, I'm sorry. We really can't let him in. These 2 guards seemed to have a poker face. Throughout the entire conversation, they didn't show any expression at all. No one knew what they were thinking. Even though the 2 guards were talking about the Lionian family's rules, as if everything had to be done according to the Lionian family's rules, it made Guhan even more suspicious. Everyone knew that while the family head was Lionian Ling's father, the one who was actually in charge was Lionian Ling's grandfather, Fleeting Wooden Fish. If Fleeting Wooden Fish's words were useless against the 2 guards, then how could Fleeting Wooden Fish be the emperor? Fleeting Wooden Fish must have found out about his arrival through some means, which was why he purposely arranged for the 2 guards to stand guard. He even pretended to be impartial. All right, I understand now. There must be someone behind this. Forget it. Guhan, wait here for a while. I'll go in and look for him. Lionian Ling understood as well, and was about to rush into the house to have a friendly chat with Fleeting Wooden Fish. Wait. Ling. Guhan grabbed Lionian Ling's hand and stopped Lionian Ling, who was about to rush into the house. Ling, can you let me handle this? You handle it. Who asked you to come? Fine, you can deal with it yourself. Fleeting Cold, who was about to reject the offer, suddenly changed his mind. This scene caused the expressions of the 2 expressionless guards to change slightly. They watched as Lionian Ling's hand was firmly held in Guhan's, and saw that a single sentence from Guhan was enough to change Lionian Ling's mind. They could not help but sigh in their hearts. Their young miss has finally grown up. Brothers, I've heard of a legend about the Flowing Light family, but I'm not sure if it's true. I would like to ask for your advice. Guhan walked forward and cupped his fists at the 2 guards. Speak. The guards said stiffly. I heard that when Wu Zhongzhendi was young, he wanted to enter the Flowing Light family and borrow their records. However, he was rejected by the Flowing Light family due to his lowly status. However, Wu Zhongzhendi was young and rash, and he killed his way from the main gate to the middle of the mountain. As a result, he obtained special permission from the Flowing Light family, allowing him to enter and leave the Flowing Light family freely. Is this rumor true? Gu Han asked stiffly. This. The two guards hesitated. They did not know how to answer this question. However, Liuyan Ling suddenly clapped her hands and said, That's right, that's right. There's such a thing. I've even heard my father tell this story before. Gu Han, you're really knowledgeable. This matter is true. It can't be faked. Alright, since the first miss had admitted it, there was no need for the two guards to hide it anymore. They nodded and said, That's right. Gu Han smiled slightly when he heard that. Alright. Today, Gu Han intends to imitate Wu Zhongzhendi. I'll kill my way to the middle of the mountain and win the right to enter and leave the Flowing Light family freely. Is that possible? Insolence. The guard snorted. Back then, Wu Zhongzhendi used an ordinary iron sword to kill his way up. If you use your sword, ladies, to kill your way up, what kind of ability is that? Which ear of yours heard that I'm going to use sword, ladies, to kill my way up? Gu Han snorted coldly. Then, he handed his sword, ladies, to Liuyan Ling. He took out an ordinary iron sword from his dimensional pocket and said, Is this enough? Good. You have guts. Then, let us two brothers have a taste of your skills. The two ordinary people also drew out two iron swords from somewhere and stood in front of Ji Han to block his attack. Gu Han, you must be careful. They have been studying swordsmanship in the Kanglan Sea Pavilion since they were young. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't synchronize their sword, ladies, they would definitely become the best sword masters. Don't underestimate them, Liuyan Ling reminded. As soon as Liuyan Ling finished speaking, Gu Han started fighting with the two guards. Both sides were competing in the most basic swordsmanship. It didn't involve sword essence or sword chi, which only sword ladies could use. It felt like they had returned to the pugilistic world of the Middle Ages. As far as the eye could see, there were cold flashes of swords. It was indeed as Liuyan Ling had said. The two guards' swordsmanship was extraordinary. They were among the best in this world. According to Ji Han's senses, these two so-called swordsmen had at least 30% of his standard. Ji Han wanted to see how strong they were, so there was no clear winner and loser, and they were just entangled with each other. The fight at the gate quickly attracted the attention of the other patrolling guards. These patrolling guards immediately gave up on their original mission and began to enjoy the battle with great interest. Chapter 701. From this, it could be seen that the members of the Liuyan family did not follow the rules that well. If they really did, they wouldn't have stopped to watch a fight. Who are the two people fighting? Someone in the crowd asked. I think it's Little Six. The Little Six who defeated 5 opponents in one go during the morning meeting a few days ago. That kid has some skill. It looks like the challenger is out of luck. TCH, that's where you're wrong. How many of those who dared to challenge the Liuyan family clan like the Sword Emperor of No End were weak? Moreover, Little Six is only an intermediate swordsman. There's still quite a gap between him and those peak advanced swordsmen. In my opinion, Little Six will only last a few hundred moves at most before he's defeated. As soon as this person finished speaking, Little Six flew out and crashed into a tree on the side of the road. The crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Following that, the other guard flew out with Little Six. The entire process only lasted about 20 to 30 moves, causing the person who spoke to Little Six to feel his face burn. You're really something. Not bad, not bad. Liuyan Ling said excitedly. Hurry up and go in. You've defeated the two guards at the entrance. There are still many people waiting for you inside. With a smile, Gu Han strode into the Liuyan family's mountain with his head held high. Not long after entering the mountain, Gu Han heard a series of hurried footsteps. Then, dozens of swordsmen wearing the same clothes as the two guards rushed out from all directions of the mountain. These people did not even greet Guhan as they unceremoniously raised their swords to attack him. Ji Han exchanged a few blows with these people and found that their swordsmanship was not as good as the two guards from before. However, there were too many of them. Without using his sword Qi, it would be quite troublesome to deal with them. Moreover, these people were not very old. From the looks of it, they were only 13 or 14 years old. Guhan, these are all beginner swordsmen of the family. They're just a bunch of brats. Just teach them a lesson. Don't hurt them, Liuyan Ling warned. When these brats heard Liuyan Ling's words, they were immediately enraged. The young miss actually told this person not to hurt them. Was she looking down on them? As a result, these little brats became even more ruthless. Each and every one of them aimed their swords at Ji Han's vital points. Since these people were not polite to Ji Han, then Ji Han did not need to be polite to them either. There was a flash of sword light in the sky, and then these little brats flew out like cannonballs. Some hung on trees, some fell into the water, and some smashed their faces into a pile of dog poop on the side of the road. In short, they were in a very sorry state. Ling, these are the elites of your family. Then I'll let my disciple try it out one day. Guhan's team's Liuyan Ling said with a smile. What are you saying? This is only the foot of the mountain. Look at how excited you are to win against some brats. If you have the ability, win all the way to the Kunzu Tower at the waist of the mountain. Liuyan Ling pouted. The distance from the foot of the mountain to the waist of the mountain was about 10 kilometers. It would take a normal person about 20 minutes to walk. In these 20 minutes, Guhan had thoroughly experienced the foundation of the Liuyan family. These people at the entrance were indeed just appetizers. As Guhan walked to the waist of the mountain, there would be a group of swordsmen charging out every 1 or 2 minutes. These swordsmen had no intention of fighting one-on-one. They all swarmed forward and attacked Guhan from all angles. After 10 minutes, Guhan's sword didn't rest at all. He was constantly fighting. After walking for about a kilometer or two, the swordsmen that appeared were clearly much stronger than the previous swordsmen. Moreover, not only did their individual strength increase, the most troublesome thing was that they could also form a formation, increasing the group strength by more than 10 times. While dealing with these swordsmen, Ji Han already felt that it was very difficult. This wasn't the most troublesome thing. The most troublesome thing was the assassins hiding in the shadows. It was already close to evening, and the surroundings were somewhat dark. This was even more suitable for assassins to hide themselves. Some of them hid in the trees, some in the ground, and some even disguised themselves as ordinary swordsmen. All of them attacked Guhan at unexpected times and angles. Guhan killed endlessly. After who knew how long, Guhan suddenly felt the area around him empty. The swordsmen that had surrounded him earlier had disappeared without a trace. Guhan felt his body and found that he had lost most of his strength. He had unknowingly suffered dozens of wounds on his body, and his clothes were completely soaked in blood. When the battle ended, Guhan suddenly felt a wave of fatigue. The pain that had been covered up by the intense battle also appeared at the right time. It seems like my swordsmanship foundation is still lacking. Guhan sighed softly. After he started practicing the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, Guhan had spent most of his time practicing the powerful sword moves of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. He had neglected the basic swordsmanship. Guhan felt that there was still a lot of room for improvement. He could reduce the number of wounds on his body from a few dozen to a dozen. Brother. Just as Guhan was inspecting his wounds, a person slowly walked over from the front. This person was wearing a green robe and had a wine flask hanging on his waist. He did not have any weapons on him and only held a fan in his hand. He looked relaxed and at ease. He was a living, and elegant young master. You are not human. Guhan stared at the elegant young master for a while and finally said with certainty. Guhan found that there was a faint dimensional aura on his body. This aura was very faint, and if one did not look carefully, they would not be able to notice it. I am Hua Wu Q. The elegant young master bowed and smiled warmly. Brother, you have been fighting all the way here. You might need to rest for a while. Hua Wu Q. Guhan's eyes lit up as he recalled this person's information. This was a very active Yuan Ku from 700 years ago. He seemed to have the ability to graft flowers onto trees, and was able to transfer the attacks of others to his own body. He had defeated many sword ladies, and even a few famous sword-wielding experts had been defeated by him. However, for some unknown reason, he had disappeared. It turned out that he had stayed in the Liu Nian clan. The sky is getting dark, and I'm hungry. Let's hurry up and finish our mission, Guhan said calmly. In the next second, the iron sword in his hand appeared in front of Hua Wu Qiu. The fan in Hua Wu Qiu's hand opened up, and the paper-like surface of the fan actually blocked the tip of Ji Yuhan's sword. Then, the fan closed up, and Ji Yuhan felt his own strength rebounding from his own sword. Ji Yuhan could only take a step back, as he calmly dispelled the force of the attack. So this Yuan Ku's weapon was his fan. A serious expression appeared on Guhan's face. This meant that Guhan was starting to take this opponent seriously. More importantly, Guhan had never fought against an opponent who used a fan before. He was naturally quite curious about this new weapon. Brother, please. Hua Wu Qiu waved the fan in his hand. Coupled with his bright jade-like face, he was able to charm many of his brainless fans. Guhan took a step forward and started fighting with Hua Wu Qiu again. This time, Guhan had a deeper understanding of Hua Wu Qiu's abilities. Hua Wu Qiu indeed had the ability to reflect his attacks. Furthermore, he was extremely adept at using softness to overcome hardness. Under the influence of Hua Wu Qiu's fan, his attacks would become soft and fluffy. It wasn't that Guhan had no way of defeating such an opponent. It was just that it would take a long time. Seeing that the sky was getting darker and darker, Guhan was only 2 to 3 kilometers away from the middle of the mountain. If this dragged on any longer, Guhan did not have the confidence that he would be able to defeat a stronger opponent in the dark. Hence, just as the battle was getting more intense, Guhan suddenly retracted his sword and distanced himself from Hua Wu Qiu. Brother, are you giving up? It's better if I give up. The sky is getting dark, why don't the two of us stay here and drink a few cups of wine? We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. Hua Wu Qiu laughed. Based on what he said, he actually wanted Guhan to stay here for the night. Forget it, I personally don't like to sleep in the open. Ji Yuhan finished speaking and walked away, ignoring Hua Wu Qiu who was in front of him. Hua Wu Qiu wanted to stop him, but after a few tries, he realized that his movement technique was actually not as good as Guhan's. Guhan casually took a few steps and he landed behind Guhan. After a few breaths, he actually landed behind Guhan. Uncle Hua, it seems like your weakness has been seen through. Beside Hua Wu Qiu, a mischievous voice sounded out. Hua Wu Qiu raised his head and saw that the person who had spoken was none other than Liunian Ling. Liunian Ling's words explained the situation. That was because Guhan realized that there was no need for him to fight Hua Wu Qiu. As long as he was faster than him and could dodge his attacks, it would be enough. There was no need for him to defeat him. Ling, did you tell him about my weakness? Hua Wu Qiu put away his fan and knocked on Liunian Ling's head. You little girl, you've forgotten about this pitiful Uncle Hua now that you have a man. Uncle Hua, I swear to the heavens that I did not mention a single word about your situation to Guhan. These were all discovered by him. Liunian Ling said sincerely. Uncle Hua, what do you think of Guhan? On this mountain, your Uncle Hua has the worst judgment of people. If you must ask Uncle Hua why, then Uncle Hua can tell you this. You can't keep this man. He's not suitable for you, or rather, he's not suitable for the Liu Nian family's patriarch, just like your mother. Chapter 702. After defeating Hua Wu Qiu, Ji Yuhan met an old man who was brimming with energy. When Guhan saw this old man, he was performing a set of seemingly very slow fist techniques. Guhan was initially dissatisfied with this set of fist techniques, but after watching a few moves, he immediately felt a deep sense of respect for this set of fist techniques. With the last bit of sunlight, Guhan was able to watch the complete set of fist techniques. This set of fist techniques was reserved and restrained, using softness to overcome hardness. Between fast and slow, the old man's will, qi, form, and spirit were perfectly fused as one. Watching Guhan, it was as if he was intoxicated. Only when the set of fist techniques was completed did Guhan realize that he had been watching for 30 minutes. Did you enjoy it? The old man suddenly asked Guhan. I did not enjoy it. I still feel that there are some things I do not understand about your fist techniques. I hope to watch it a few more times. Guhan replied honestly. You are quite an honest child. You use a sword. Let me ask you again. How does this set of fist techniques compare to sword techniques? The old man asked again. All the martial arts in the world can be mastered through a comprehensive study. This set of fist techniques contains the great Tao of sword techniques, as if it was born from sword techniques. Guhan thought for a while and replied. That's good. Since you can see this point, why don't you show me the sword technique that I just taught you? The old man's words surprised Guhan. Just now, the old man had used a set of fist techniques. When did it become a set of sword techniques? However, Guhan thought for a while and his heart lit up. He took out his iron sword and used a set of sword techniques. The sword technique that Guhan used was also incomparably slow. It was reserved and restrained, using softness to overcome hardness. It was as if it was born from the set of fist techniques. The fist techniques had become the sword techniques. Obviously, one had a weapon while the other had no weapon. Logically speaking, the difference between the two techniques should be like heaven and earth. However, the spectators felt that the two techniques were exactly the same. Tai Chi sword. This is the Taiji sword. Seeing Guhan use this sword technique, the old man suddenly sighed in a daze. Guhan's swordplay was halfway through when he suddenly stopped. Go on. Why did you stop? The old man suddenly said in a hurry. He was eager to see the complete sword art. In reply to this senior's question, I haven't completely understood your fist technique just now, and I still can't understand the second half of the sword technique, so I don't dare to embarrass myself, Guhan said sincerely. Sigh. I'm really getting old. 500 years is not even as long as the time I spent teaching this kid a set of fist techniques. The old man suddenly stood up, took out a booklet from his body, and threw it to Guhan. Guhan took the booklet. It turned out to be an ancient book. The words Taiji Fist were written on the dark blue cover. The ancient thread-bound style and the mottled yellow paper indicated that this book could be a product from before the Great Destruction, or even from the Middle Ages. Old senior, what do you mean by this? Guhan gently caressed the cover of the book. He felt as if he had become the protagonist of a novel, and met a legendary senior who specialized in gifting him secret manuals. This is for you. I hope that one day, you will be able to use the complete Taiji sword and let me see it with my own eyes. I will be satisfied. You can go now. After saying that, the senior stepped aside to let him pass. Senior, are you letting me leave just like that? Guhan was puzzled. This was the first person he met in Fleeting Time Mountain who did not fight with him. This old man is just staying here, and I have nothing better to do. I'm not a hired thug, so why should I stop you? The old man caressed his snow-white goatee and said, remember our agreement. I'll be waiting to learn your Taiji sword. It seems that this is really the legendary senior who specializes in gifting secret manuals. Guhan carefully placed the Taiji sword into his dimensional pocket and cupped his hands at the old man. May I know your name, senior? This old man is young Luke Han. With that, the old man disappeared from Guhan's sight, as if he had never existed. By the time Guhan reached the mountainside, the sky had already darkened, and the moon was already high up in the sky. With the help of the faint moonlight, Guhan could see a tall figure standing in front of Kanzu's building. You're here. You're a little slower than I expected. Seeing Ji Han standing in front of him, the high-pitched voice said faintly. Senior, when did you expect me to arrive? Guhan asked as he straightened his back. You should have arrived here 1.5 hours ago. The man's words shocked Guhan. 1.5 hours was equivalent to an hour. Guhan had wasted most of his time fighting with the swordsman on the mountainside. Ji Han wanted to use this opportunity to train his swordsmanship, so he did not use all of his strength. If he used all of his strength to sprint, Ji Han was confident that he could increase the time needed to reach this place by an hour. Senior, you have a good eye. This time, Guhan bowed slightly as he spoke. Forget it. Do you think that the Liu Nian family is only SOSO? That you still have the strength to make it here so easily? The man said again. I wouldn't dare. The Liu Nian family is famous throughout the world, and its name has never faded. If the Liu Nian family had used their full strength, I wouldn't even have been able to enter the door, let alone kill my way here. The Liu Nian family must have shown me mercy and not used their full strength, Guhan said word by word. This was not Ji Yuhan trying to flatter the Liu Nian clan. Every word he said was the truth. Along the way, Ji Yuhan had sensed at least 10 pairs of eyes staring at him. The owners of these eyes were all stronger than him. If they had attacked him, he would have already collapsed on the way. How could he have made it here? It's good that you can understand this. The man nodded. Back then, Wu Zhongzhendi also made it here. However, he was 10 years older than you, so I sent 3 more people. Although it was a bit dangerous, he still made it here. Wu Zhongzhendi took 2 of my attacks back then. You're 10 years younger than him, so you only need to take 1 of my attacks. I'll give you 10 minutes to prepare. I'll attack after 10 minutes. Whether or not you can take this attack will depend on your luck. With that, the man closed his eyes and no longer looked at Guhan. Speaking of which, this was probably the person with the greatest ability to show off that Guhan had seen in the real world. Throughout the entire conversation, his aura had completely suppressed Guhan. It made Guhan feel like he was tied up. However, Ji Yuhan knew very well that this person was not acting tough at all. His strength was there for all to see. This was definitely a strong opponent. Just based on the aura of this person, Ji Yuhan actually had no confidence that he would be able to receive this sword. This person was right. Guhan really did need time to prepare. Guhan needed to focus and calm down. He needed to gradually gather his spirit and aura at one point and then erupt them at the same time. Only then would he be able to block this person's attack. As time passed, Guhan suddenly felt that the 10 minutes his opponent had given him was a little rushed. It would be even better if he had been given 20 or 30 minutes. Wait, what was he thinking? He was actually hoping that his opponent would give him more time to prepare. Guhan's heart stirred. He suddenly understood that when he started hoping that he had more time, his heart was already in a mess. What was even more terrifying was that when he understood that his heart was in a mess, his sword Dao would inevitably be close to collapsing. If that was the case, he might as well not give himself time to prepare. At the first moment they met, there would be a clear winner. As expected, I still fell into the opponent's trap. This time, Guhan completely understood. It was a pity that he understood it a little too late. He couldn't calm down and his sword technique would definitely be greatly reduced. His strength might not be able to reach 90% of his peak. Just as Guhan's mind was in a mess, a voice rang out. Uncle, why are you here? At this moment, Liuyan Ling had also arrived at the mountainside. When she saw this man blocking her way, her expression immediately changed. Uncle, you're blocking my way? This isn't fair. How can Guhan be your opponent? Why can't I be his opponent? Could it be that Ling is looking down on me? In the instant that he spoke to Liuyan Ling, this person's aura was instantly restrained. The ropes that were tied to Guhan's body also disappeared as if they had never existed. This allowed Guhan to finally take a deep breath of fresh air. More importantly, during this time when the aura disappeared, Guhan could finally tidy up his state of mind again. This was a truly precious time to catch his breath. The sky was too dark, and Guhan couldn't see the other person's expression clearly. The only thing he could be sure of was that the other person's face was definitely filled with smiles. No. What Ling is saying is that uncle is bullying the young. Liuyan Ling said with dissatisfaction. Back then, when Wu Zhongzhendi came up, my great-great-grandfather asked uncle for help, but uncle refused no matter what. You said that Wu Zhongzhendi's swordsmanship wasn't worthy of your help. At that time, Wu Zhongzhendi was the #1 swordmaster in the world apart from our Liuyan family. What is this Guhan now? Aren't you bullying the young by saying that you want to fight him personally? After hearing Liuyan Ling's words, Guhan nearly choked on his breath. So this fellow was lying to me. Back then, when he fought Wu Zhongzhendi, he didn't even make a move. He even lied to me by saying that he had exchanged 2 blows with Wu Zhongzhendi. However, in Gu Han's heart, he was even more fearful of this person. If Wu Zhongzhendi wasn't worthy of his swordsmanship, then how terrifying would his swordsmanship be? 10 minutes are up. Something in Gu Han's mind jumped. The person who was talking to Liuyan Ling just a moment ago had already become a blur. Every inch of Gu Han's skin felt like it was filled with a murderous aura that pierced into his skin. At the same time, Gu Han's pupils dilated. He saw a sword ray that was as bright as the sun stabbing towards him. Gu Han couldn't determine where the sword ray was going to stab at. Focus. At the critical moment, Gu Han was able to determine where the opponent's sword was going to land. In an instant, thousands of possible positions appeared in Gu Han's mind. However, in the same instant, Gu Han eliminated all of them. Not a single possibility was left in his mind. This is the 9 solitary swords. In Gu Han's mind, this sword technique gradually overlapped with the 9 solitary swords used by recondite iron heavy sword in the game. However, the sword technique that this person was using now felt far superior to the 9 solitary swords used by recondite iron heavy sword. It was like the feeling between a father and a son. Seems like I can only use him. Great Chowder sword technique. At the critical moment, Gu Han decided to completely abandon the 9 mysterious heaven swords. Instead, he used the Great Chowder sword technique that he had combined all of his sword techniques in the game. Clang. After a sword chime, the iron sword in Gu Han's hand shattered into pieces like a broken mirror. Interesting kid. Interesting sword technique. Consider it my loss. The person suddenly laughed in a carefree manner. Then, he tossed the sword in his hand onto the ground and vanished in the blink of an eye. Although this person had admitted defeat, Gu Han knew that he was the one who had lost. Everyone knew very well what it meant to have one's iron sword shatter in a battle of life and death. Moreover, it was just one sword technique. That's strange. If this person wants to leave, then so be it. Why did he toss his sword aside? A hint of puzzlement flashed in Gu Han's mind. He lowered his head to look, and then his entire body instantly stiffened. The thing that this person had tossed aside was not a sword, but a half-withered tree branch. This person had actually used a withered tree branch to completely shatter Gu Han's iron sword. What a terrifying sword technique. Aside from these 2 words, Gu Han could not find any other adjectives to describe this person's sword technique. This person's sword technique was so terrifying. Could it be that this person is? Before Gu Han could figure it out, he felt the entire world start to spin. Then, as Liuyan Ling cried out in surprise, he fainted weakly on the ground. Chapter 703. Naigari. How's the situation there? Fleeting wooden fish asked a burly man in a small room. Miss has sent her to the guest room. It seems that she's fine. The doctor said that she's just overexerting herself. She'll be fine after a good night's sleep, Naigari replied respectfully. Sigh, he's here in the end, a few years earlier than I planned. That's not a good thing, Fleeting wooden fish said with a sigh. Actually, it's not too early. According to your plan, he should have come to you when he's a famed sword. Isn't he now a famed sword wielder? Naigari replied. But what's the point? The most important thing is time. There are still 3 years before that day comes. Before that, I hope that he won't get too involved, and I don't want Ling to get involved either. Fleeting wooden fish's expression became more and more distressed. What I don't understand is who helped him unlock the seal in his body, allowing him to become a famed sword wielder ahead of time. The most abominable thing is that that person actually gave him the pauper sword in secret. Yes. Who is this person who's secretly plotting all of this? Did he see through all of our plans, especially the sword of Qing Pin, which put us in a very passive state? What's more, we don't know what he's planning, and whether he's on our side or the other. If we're not careful, we'll lose everything, Naigari said with a pained expression. Forget it. At least the speed of his growth has exceeded all of our expectations. I originally estimated that it would take him about 5 years to become a famed sword wielder, but he's already reached this step in less than 4 months. In 3 years, he might become a immortal sword wielder, and our plan will be much smoother. Fleeting wooden fish smiled. But Patriarch, could the growth of his strength be part of the plan of that person in the dark? It's because of the person's actions that Guhan has reached this step in advance, Nigari said worriedly. That's possible, but it's unlikely. Those who stood on our side hoped that Guhan's strength would quickly grow, while those who stood on the other side wished that he would remain stagnant forever. If Guhan's advancement was done by the person in the dark, then this person in the dark is on our side, and there is nothing to worry about. On the other hand, if the person in the dark is on the other side, then Guhan's increase in strength is due to other factors. This has already surpassed the calculations of the person in the dark. Right now, he must be even more anxious than we are, and he wants to use all sorts of methods to trap Guhan's strength at the level of a famous sword forever. Pay attention to what happens next. If he really is standing against us, he will definitely make a move. There will be a time when he reveals himself, Flowing Time Wooden Fish said with a dark expression. By the way, family head, the Sword Pavilion reported that someone wanted to coordinate with the King of Yu, Go-Gen-Gen. The people from the Sword Pavilion asked me what they should do, Nigari said. Someone wants to synchronize the Yu King Go-Gen sword? This information is very important, and it might be from the person in the dark. Go and find out who this person is. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish narrowed his eyes. There's no need to investigate. We've been keeping an eye on this person for a long time. He's the son of Sword Immortal Baiju, Ku-Rokin, Nigari replied. It's him. I think I've seen him before. Fleeting Wooden Fish revealed a look of reminiscence. Back then, that old bastard Wudao had a son at an old age, and he brought it with him wherever he went. He even brought it to me to show off. I remember I even gave him a set of the Legend of Kunzu. So it was this child. That's why Sword Pavilion doesn't know how to deal with it. Luckily, Tianheng got lucky and sent out an order a few days ago to stop Ku-Rokin. At the very least, Ku-Rokin won't be able to touch the King of Yu Go-Gen sword until tomorrow afternoon, Nigari replied. So what if I let him come into contact with it? Do you think he'll be able to synchronize it? Fleeting Wooden Fish asked. But master, according to our information, he has already synchronized the King of Yu Go-Gen sword in the game. According to Tomono Kakaze's data, his success rate in synchronizing the King of Yu Go-Gen sword in real life is as high as 90%, Nigari added. 90%? What's the difference between that and 100%? Fleeting Wooden Fish's eyes lit up at this point. Could it be that this Ku-Rokin is a chess piece set up by the person in the dark? If Ku-Rokin succeeds in synchronizing the King of Yu Go-Gen sword, do you think Guhan will be stuck here and unable to move? I think. Before Nigari could finish his sentence, a heroic voice came from outside the room. Don't worry, that kid's state of mind has already surpassed our expectations. Even if the King of Yu Go-Gen sword is taken away by someone else, it's not a big deal. Maybe that kid will sink for a while, but he can't be trapped. Once he's freed from the cage of his heart, even I can't predict what he'll become. Maybe he'll really become my opponent. The man who fought with Ji Han just now swaggered into the room and sat opposite the Fleeting Wooden Fish. He did not show any respect to the Fleeting Wooden Fish. I didn't expect you to have such a high opinion of him, sir. Fleeting Wooden Fish did not show the slightest displeasure in the face of the man's rudeness. Instead, he was full of smiles. Sir, you fought him personally. What do you think of his swordsmanship? Of course he's nowhere near my level, but there aren't many humans in this world who can beat him in swordsmanship. The person looked at Fleeting Wooden Fish's face a few times, and when he saw Fleeting Wooden Fish's face, he felt a chill run down his spine. This person was a psychological shadow that had haunted Fleeting Wooden Fish since he was young. Ever since Fleeting Wooden Fish was born, he had been living under this person's clutches. The man stroked his goatee and said, if you didn't use your family's billion sword secrets, then he could have fought you to a draw 20 years ago. Do you understand now? He could have fought me to a draw 20 years ago. Isn't that a little too exaggerated? Fleeting Wooden Fish's face was full of disbelief. Little Wooden Fish, could you have withstood my sword of founding emperor 20 years ago? The man's question left Fleeting Wooden Fish speechless. After a while, he said. Sir, what did you say? He could have withstood your sword of founding emperor? Could it be that you used the sword of founding emperor to test him? No, little wooden fish. You told me that it was best to stop him at the mountainside and not let him stay on Fleeting Mountain. I swore that I could only use one move, and I had to chase him down. After thinking about it, I could only use the sword of founding emperor. I didn't expect this kid to have withstood it, and with a strange sword skill that even I don't understand. This was simply too awesome. I haven't been this excited in a long time. When the man said the words a sword skill that even I don't understand, his entire body became excited, and his skin turned red. It was as if he had just passed the imperial examinations and was about to consummate his marriage. Fleeting Wooden Fish thought for a while and said, if that's the case, then I'll have to change my plan to deal with him. My original plan can't be used anymore. *CK your plan. The man's scabbard instantly appeared on Fleeting Wooden Fish's head, and he gave it a heavy knock before vanishing without a trace. The entire action was completed in 0.01 seconds. Even a peerless sword master like Fleeting Wooden Fish couldn't react at all before he was hit by the man's scabbard. Mister, why did you hit me? The force of the scabbard was extraordinary, and Fleeting Wooden Fish was in so much pain that he almost cried. The 70-80-year-old man was like a child, holding his head and looking at the man with an aggrieved expression. Did little Wooden Fish say something wrong again? An old man in his 70s or 80s who called himself Little Wooden Fish. Just imagining such a scene would give the onlookers goosebumps. However, Naigari didn't react to it. It was obvious that he was used to it. I'm hitting you, stupid wooden fish. The man snorted coldly. How many times have you reformulated your plan for the sake of this Jiu Han? Which of your plans didn't end abruptly after they started? Today, after personally exchanging blows with this Jiu Han, I finally understand that he is no longer someone that can be controlled by any plan. What you need to do now is to give up on that damned plan of yours. Do you understand? Mister, are you saying that we should let him grow freely without our control? Fleeting Wooden Fish asked hesitantly. He needs freedom to grow, but he can't be free either. I think it's good enough for Ling to stay by his side, the man said with a smile. No. Ling can't be in contact with him anymore. What happened at the sword burial grounds was completely out of my expectations. If she continues to be in contact with him, I'm afraid that Ling will really fall in love with him. That will be the greatest pain in Ling's life. I won't allow that to happen, Fleeting Wooden Fish said with a serious expression. Little Wooden Fish, you really are a wooden fish. How can you not see through Ling's thoughts? Her heart is already tied to Guhan. It's too late for you to act now. The man took out his wine gourd and took a gulp. He then let out a long sigh of satisfaction. I haven't had green plum wine for more than 300 years. As expected, the green plum wine in the heavenly gourd is the best. It's only second to that bastard's green lotus drunk. Sigh, I can't think about green lotus drunk anymore, or I won't be able to sleep tonight. After saying that, he leisurely walked out of Flowing Time Wooden Fish's room, leaving Flowing Time Wooden Fish and Naigari with a gloomy expression on their faces. Naigari, answer me honestly. Has Ling really fallen in love with him? Master, Naigari doesn't understand love, but I can see the shadow of the young master and his wife in Miss Ling. Tell Ling to come see me. Yes. Pass down the order. Do not let Ku rock in coordinate with King Ugojien. Yes. Has Rina Takasaka recovered? She has. Good. Let her serve Guhan tonight. It's not good to keep some things from him. I don't want the Fleeting family to become the villain of this world. Those people are enough. Chapter 704. In his dreams, Guhan's mind kept replaying the slash from before. The slash came at Guhan from different angles and directions. Guhan fought against the slash again and again in his dreams. He only woke up when he was exhausted. Guhan, you're awake. The voice sounded familiar, and Guhan's heart skipped a beat. He opened his eyes and saw that it was indeed Rina Takasaka. Guhan immediately looked at his purple palace. When he saw that Ching Pin's slash was still intact, he heaved a sigh of relief and smiled at Rina Takasaka. Since you're here, does this mean that the Liu Nian family isn't going to hide it from me anymore? Or is the Liu Nian family going to kill me? Guhan, I had no choice back then. I had no intention of harming you. I only wanted to bring Lady Qing Pin back. That's something that belongs to the Liu Nian family's ancestor, Rina Takasaka said with her head lowered. What a joke. Everything else can be considered an inheritance, but the sword maiden belongs to the virtuous. It's not something that belongs to a single family. She's a treasure of the entire human race. Your Liu Nian family might be powerful, but you don't have the ability to take the sword maiden for yourself. What's the point of saying all this now? It's already happened. Rina Takasaka pinched the corner of Guhan's blanket. If you hate me, you can kill me now. I won't blame you. I won't kill you. I'll only kill you in the Liu Nian family if there's something wrong with my head. Guhan looked at Rina Takasaka's calm expression and sighed. I can let go of the hatred between us. Since you've appeared before me, it means that the Liu Nian family has no intention of lying to me. Although I don't know why the Liu Nian family is doing this, I feel that you have no ill intentions towards me. Since the Liu Nian family has no ill intentions towards me, I won't dare to make things difficult for the number one family in the world. From today onwards, we can let bygones be bygones. Furthermore, I have a favor to ask of you. How would I dare to do anything to you? Do you men always chase after benefits when solving problems? Rina Takasaka sighed. Grandpa is like that, Master is like that, you are like that, and so am I. In the entire Lionian family, only Ling is clean. Guhan did not know how to answer Rina Takasaka's question, so he remained silent. After a while, he asked, what time is it now? Where was Ling? Can I go pick up your old patriarch? It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The old patriarch has ordered that you can see him whenever you want. As for Miss Ling, I'm sorry, but I don't know where she is. She hasn't appeared since she was called by the old patriarch last night. If you need anything, you can look for me. I'm of the same use as Ling really. Guhan lowered his head and thought for a while. Then take me to see the old patriarch. May I ask if Wang Chenyan lives here? Ku Rokin pressed the doorbell in front of him. After waiting for 3 to 4 minutes, a meek girl answered, so Wang Chenyan does live here. Why are you looking for him? It's like this. I'm from Yuzhong City, and I've heard a lot about Comrade Wang Chenyan. I'd like to spar with him. Is that possible? It was rare for Ku Rokin to speak so tactfully. He did not act like a chunibya anymore. My master is out on a mission. He's not at home. The girl replied. Out on a mission? When did he go out? Ku Rokin panicked. I went out before 6 o'clock this morning. It seems that something urgent happened. Anyway, my master is not at home, so I can't open the door for you. Please forgive me. After that, the maid turned off the intercom. After hearing the answer, Ku Rokin's face turned purple. He drew out his sword and chopped the guardrail of the stairs in anger. The guardrail, which was made of alloy steel, was cut into 2 pieces. Shosho, let's go. Although Ku Rokin was furious, he could only say go. But why did he add a person's name in front of him? Could it be that someone else came with him? Sure enough, as soon as Ku Rokin's voice fell, a cute little girl jumped down from the stairs. She jumped up like a bird when she was about 7 or 8 stairs away from Ku Rokin. She threw herself at Ku Rokin and kissed Ku Rokin's face. Dad, don't be angry. Shosho is a good girl. I'm not angry. Dad isn't angry. No. I'm not angry. Ku Rokin couldn't maintain the anger on his face after Shosho called him dad. He lovingly held Shosho in his arms and left the building step by step. This was the 19th person that Ku Rokin had visited. There were a total of 20 names on the list that the waiter gave to Ku Rokin yesterday. Since this morning, Ku Rokin began to visit the people on the list according to the distance. Although Ku Rokin was very confident in himself, he couldn't help but worry if he could defeat these opponents when he started to visit these people. But soon, this worry disappeared without a trace because Ku Rokin couldn't find his opponents. When Ku Rokin went to the first person on the list, That person told Ku Rokin that he was busy with an urgent matter and would only have time to see him in about a month. It was normal for people to be busy with their own matters, so Ku Rokin didn't care at first. Then the second person on the list told Ku Rokin that he didn't want to compete with people from Yuzhong City and asked Ku Rokin to find someone else. There was no other way. The second person didn't want to see Ku Rokin at all. Ku Rokin had to find the third person, but the third person's sword Maiden was already damaged and was being repaired by a blacksmith. She also asked Ku Rokin to find her in a month. Everyone could imagine what happened next. Ku Rokin visited a total of 10 opponents, but each of them had various reasons to tell Ku Rokin that they had other important matters to attend to and didn't have time to spar with Ku Rokin. Now, no matter how careless Ku Rokin was, he realized that it wasn't that they didn't have time at all. They were just looking for excuses to avoid him and didn't want to spar with him. This made Ku Rokin extremely irritable. If he lost to his opponent, Ku Rokin would accept it wholeheartedly and wouldn't complain. But why were they hiding from him? Were all the famed sword-bearers in Yangjing City cowards? Could it be that sword immortal Tian Hong secretly ordered them to do this? He actually used such a despicable method to prevent himself from synchronizing with Go Jian, the king of Yu. Ku Rokin instinctively began to suspect that the mastermind was sword immortal Tian Hong. The reason was very good. Sword immortal Tian Hong was afraid of Ku Rokin's strength. He was afraid that Ku Rokin would be able to synchronize with Go Jian, the king of Yu. As a result, sword immortal Tian Hong became the innocent scapegoat. Although he really didn't want Ku Rokin to obtain Go Jian, those who were familiar with sword immortal Tian Hong's personality would know that sword immortal Tian Hong would never use such methods. If he really wanted to stop Ku Rokin, he would use his irresistible strength to personally strangle Ku Rokin's hope. Of course, Ku Rokin didn't expect the mastermind to be the Liu Nian clan's old patriarch, the old man who had once given him the legend of Kunzu. This old man had been Ku Rokin's idol when he was young. Of course, Ku Rokin didn't expect the mastermind to be the Liu Nian clan's old patriarch. This was the old man who had given him the legend of Kunzu. This was the old man who had been Ku Rokin's idol when he was young. "Daddy, are we going home? It's so boring today. We keep walking. It's so boring." The little lowly named Shaw Shaw sat on the giant's neck with her chin on Ju Luren's head and said in a bored manner, "Come with Daddy to another place. If the people here still don't want to see me, then we'll go back to where we live." Ku Rokin patted Shaw Shaw's butt and said with a bitter smile, "Please come in. The old patriarch is inside." Rina Takasaka pushed open the door to the small room where Fleeting Wooden Fish and Naigari had talked the night before. Guhan strode into the room and saw a skinny old man smiling at him in front of a fireplace. "He's the Liu Nian clan's old patriarch, Fleeting Wooden Fish." Guhan couldn't help but compare the person before him to the Fleeting Wooden Fish in the publicity materials. The Fleeting Wooden Fish in the publicity materials was an energetic old man with an extraordinary aura. His eyes were filled with the domineering aura of a king. However, the Fleeting Wooden Fish now had an amiable expression on his face. He looked no different from the old man next door. Junior Guhan pays his respects to Senior Fleeting Wooden Fish. Guhan bowed respectfully. Logically speaking, Guhan should address him as Senior Wooden Fish instead of Senior Fleeting Wooden Fish. It was impolite to address him by his full name. However, everyone in the world knew that even though Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was called Wooden Fish, he hated it when people called him Wooden Fish. If anyone dared to call him Wooden Fish, he would turn hostile on the spot, so Ji Yu Han decided to call him by his full name. "So you're the kid from the Ji Yu clan? Not bad, not bad. Come in. It's warmer here." Fleeting Wooden Fish waved at Guhan kindly. Guhan did not decline. He walked up to Fleeting Wooden Fish and sat on a cushion behind him. Although Fleeting Wooden Fish kindly invited Guhan to sit down, Fleeting Wooden Fish did not say a word after Guhan sat down. Guhan did not take the initiative to speak either. As a result, the entire room was deathly silent. Chapter 705. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 2 hours, and 10 minutes. Cough cough, the sky would turn dark if the silence continued any longer. Guhan and Fleeting Wooden Fish stared at each other in silence for more than 2 hours. Fleeting Wooden Fish finally coughed and broke the dead silence. I'm getting old. Young people nowadays are getting better and better. Fleeting Wooden Fish let out a long sigh. He waved his hand on the table, and a void gate appeared out of thin air. 2 cups of hot tea fell out of the void gate and landed steadily on the table. Come, have some tea. Fleeting Wooden Fish picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. It was not difficult to create something out of nothing. Any sword wielder with a dimensional pocket would be able to do it. However, Fleeting Wooden Fish's creation did not come from the dimensional pocket of the sword wielder, but from the void gate. The void gate's function was to connect 2 points in space through the void. Nothing could be stored in the void. Fleeting Wooden Fish's creation was to connect 2 cups of tea that were placed in another place with the void gate. Opening a void gate was not difficult for a sword wielder at the level of an immortal sword. However, it was extremely difficult to accurately place the void gate between the 2 teacups. Moreover, the void gate opened by Fleeting Wooden Fish was not big. It was only the size of a basketball. This meant that the other end of the void gate was also only the size of a basketball. Wanting to accurately put the 2 teacups into such a narrow void gate was like blowing up a Japanese's head with one shot from more than 10 kilometers away. It was an unimaginably difficult task. This required an extremely precise grasp of the power of the void. Only the top sword wielder at the level of an immortal sword could do it. Senior, you're amazing. I'm impressed. Guhan's admiration was sincere. He knew how difficult it was to achieve this. At the very least, his master, Liu Lei, would not be able to do it. If you're impressed, then drink this pot of tea. I'll talk to you after that. Fleeting Wooden Fish nodded. Guhan immediately picked up the teacup in front of him and drank it in one gulp. Speak. Why have you come all the way to the Fleeting family? Do you have a favor to ask of us? Fleeting Wooden Fish cut straight to the point when Ji Yuhan finished her tea. This junior hopes to borrow the Liu Nian clan's black hair severing. Ji Yuhan's reply was also very straightforward. He stated his purpose for coming here. You want to borrow my black hair? Fleeting Wooden Fish was surprised. He did not seem to know what Guhan wanted. Did Liunian Ling not tell her grandfather about Guhan's purpose last night? A trace of doubt flashed across Ji Yuhan's mind, but he quickly dismissed it. There was no need for Ji Yuhan to think too much about Fleeting Ling and his grandfather. Sure. Unexpectedly, Fleeting Wooden Fish did not take long to give Guhan his answer. It was the answer that Guhan was hoping for the most. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's attitude was so generous, and it was so easy for him to sever her hair. Ji Yuhan couldn't help but feel that this was unrealistic. It was as if he was still dreaming. Senior, are you serious? Are you really willing to give the black hair to me for free? Guhan asked nervously. That's right. I can give the black hair to you for free. Fleeting Wooden Fish said solemnly. The old patriarch of the Fleeting family had repeated his answer twice. This answer should not be false, right? Guhan began to grow excited. Guhan had not been idle during the 2 hours of silence. He had been trying to guess Fleeting Wooden Fish's reaction and come up with a plan. What if Fleeting Wooden Fish does not agree to give the black hair to me? How am I supposed to convince him? What if Fleeting Wooden Fish agrees, but comes up with extremely harsh conditions? Should I agree to his conditions? What kind of conditions will he come up with? That was why Guhan was not in a state of complete loneliness during the 2 hours. His mind had not been idle at all, and he had already come up with a foolproof plan in his mind. However, Guhan did not expect Fleeting Wooden Fish to be willing to give it to him for free. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. If there's anything you need from me in the future, I will definitely do it. Guhan suddenly bowed deeply to Fleeting Wooden Fish to express his gratitude. Good child. I won't ask you to do anything. Just live your own life in the future. It's getting late now. If you're willing, you can have dinner here. If not, I'll send someone to send you back to Yangjing City. Fleeting Wooden Fish said with a smile. I won't disturb Senior anymore. I'll take my leave now, Guhan said respectfully. All right. Rena, help me send Guhan to the door and prepare a car for him. Fleeting Wooden Fish turned to Rena Takasaka and instructed. Yes, Grandpa. Rena Takasaka nodded and gestured to Guhan. Guhan-san, please. Wait a minute. He's letting me go just like that. What happened to Sever Black Hair? Ji-Yuhan raised his head and looked at the fleeting time wooden fish with doubt in his eyes. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Fleeting Wooden Fish looked at Guhan in surprise, as if he did not know why Guhan was looking at him in such a manner. Senior, shouldn't you hand over the Sever Black Hair to me first? Ji-Yuhan said word by word. Didn't I give you Sever Black Hair? Fleeting Wooden Fish was even more surprised. He turned to Rena Takasaka and asked, Rena, did you give Sever Black Hair to Guhan? Yes, Grandpa. Rena has personally given Sever Black Hair to Guhan-san, Rena Takasaka said with an expressionless face. That's impossible. When did you give Sever Black Hair to me? Ji-Yuhan stood up and was about to say something when he suddenly stopped talking. This was because he suddenly remembered something very important. Don't tell me that the severed black hair you're talking about was 2.5 months ago, on the Miling mountain range. Ji-Yuhan's voice suddenly rang out. Back then, on the Miling mountain range, this Rena Takasaka had attempted to use the severed black hair technique to sever the mark between herself and the paw. But for some reason, Rena Takasaka's plan failed, and the green sever thread remained in her body, turning into a green viscous liquid. When the Duyu blade and Heaven Reliant blade clashed, and Guhan had almost died, the green, viscous liquid had suddenly appeared and connected the mark between the Duyu blade and Heaven Reliant blade. That was when Guhan had successfully mastered the yin-yang swordsmanship. Judging from Fleeting Wooden Fish and Rena Takasaka's words, could it be that the sever black hair that they had given him for free was the one that he had already used? What's wrong? You've only just realized it. I told you, young man. You need to think things through before you make a decision. Understand? Fleeting Wooden Fish spoke as if he was lecturing his grandson. Yes, I understand. Logically speaking, Guhan should be furious after being fooled by Fleeting Wooden Fish. However, Guhan knew that he was in the fleeting mountain of the Liunyan family. There was no point in getting angry here. Could he snatch Sever Black Hair from the Liunyan family? More importantly, Sever Black Hair belonged to the Liunyan family. It was only natural that Guhan would not give it to him when he had asked for it with his bare hands. There was no reason for him to be angry. Senior Fleeting Time, please tell me the truth. What do I have to do for you to give me Sever Black Hair? Guhan asked with his head lowered. Back then, I was the one who gave all the orders on Mount Miling. Rena was only an executor. My young friend, Guhan, I hope that you will never hold a grudge against Rena. Are you willing? Fleeting Wooden Fish suddenly changed the topic to Rena Takasaka. Senior, you might not know this, but I've already spoken to Rena in the room. I will never hold a grudge against her again. Although she tried to steal my Qingpin sword, her sever black hair is forever in my body. She even saved my life at a critical moment. I am indebted to Rena Takasaka. I swear to the heavens that I will never mention what happened on Mount Miling, nor will I hold a grudge against anyone. Guhan spoke with sincerity, but only the heavens knew if he was being sincere or not. It was not a big deal for him to let go of a grudge that did not have any negative consequences for the sake of sever black hair. Very well. Just like you said, Rena may have tried to harm you, but her sever black hair is forever in your body. The two of you are even now. It's best that you never mention it again. Fleeting Wooden Fish suddenly stood up and walked to a cupboard behind him. He took out an exquisite box from the cupboard. It must be something very precious to Fleeting Wooden Fish. Nowadays, swordbearers were used to keeping their belongings in their dimensional pockets. It was safe and secure, and there was no risk of losing their belongings unless they died. Only an old family like the Fleeting Time clan would keep their important belongings in a cupboard. Grandpa, you. Rena Takasaka, who had been indifferent all this while, suddenly became agitated when she saw the jewelry box. It was as if the item in the jewelry box was related to her. Shut up. Grandpa won't hurt you. Fleeting wooden fish glanced at Rina Takasaka from the corner of his eye, and she immediately fell silent. It was obvious that she was afraid of fleeting wooden fish. My friend Guhan, take a look at what's in the box. Fleeting wooden fish opened the jewelry box, and a small, jade-green knife was placed inside. It was the legendary Sever black hair. Its green body was translucent, and it did not look like a godly weapon that could be found in the mortal world. Chapter 706. Grandpa. Rina Takasaka's expression changed even more when she saw the item in the box. It was as if something terrifying was hidden in the box. It's not time for you to speak. Shut your mouth. I'm only talking to my little friend Guhan. Fleeting wooden fish pushed the box to Guhan. The item is right in front of you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not. This is definitely the severed black hair. The fleeting family would never lie to me. They can't afford to do so, thought Guhan as he looked at the jade-colored dagger. But when he recalled everything that had just happened, as well as Rina Takasaka's fearful expression, Guhan understood that the box probably contained more than just a green hair cutter. There must be something else in the box, or something else. But what was that something, or something else? What was it? He stared at the box for a long time, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at fleeting wooden fish and asked, "Senior, may I open the item in the box?" Rina Takasaka's body trembled when she heard Guhan say the words "the item in the box." Clearly, Guhan had hit the nail on the head. "Sure." Fleeting wooden fish had a strange look in his eyes, "if you want to open it." After receiving fleeting wooden fish's approval, Guhan first took out the severed black hair from the box and placed it on the table. He then took out the yellow silk cloth that was placed under the severed black hair. There was a small box hidden under the silk cloth. It was a very special box. The box seemed to be made of cardboard, but it was beautifully printed. Both sides of the box were printed with patterns that looked like blue and white porcelain. The main character of the pattern seemed to be an old man sitting on a wooden cart that looked like a wheelchair. The cart had 2 reins, and a tiger and a lion were tied to it. The old man was actually sitting on the cart that was pulled by the tiger and lion. The tiger and the lion were very tame. They were willing to lower their noble heads and become ordinary animals that pulled carriages. This is the Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain painting. This name suddenly floated through Guhan's mind. Guhan, who had always been calm, could no longer remain calm. Is this the real Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain? Guhan once again asked himself. Our Liu Nyan family never sells fake goods, Fleeting Wooden Fish said indifferently. He was trying to tell Guhan that Gui Jiu was real. Gui Jiu went down the mountain. This was one of the most precious relics of humanity after the Great Calamity. This Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain was actually a cigarette box, a limited edition cigarette box produced by a factory that had already gone bankrupt before the Great Calamity. It was originally a limited edition, and the manufacturer had already gone bankrupt. Therefore, it had already become extremely rare before the apocalypse, becoming the favorite collector's item for some cigarette case collectors. Following the arrival of the apocalypse, those cigarette boxes manufactured before the apocalypse had long since been unable to withstand the corrosion of time and had basically all disappeared. It was only when later generations found a perfectly preserved cigarette box from the Ghost Valley Descending the Mountain amidst the ruins. When it was first discovered, this cigarette box wasn't worth much and couldn't be considered a precious relic. It was only worth around 1 or 2,000 RMB. However, as time passed, the value of this cigarette box grew higher and higher, gradually reaching a price of 100,000 RMB. This was practically the highest price a cigarette box could fetch. Perhaps the price would continue to rise as time passed, but there was no such thing as a legend that its value would multiply by 1,000 times overnight. However, reality proved that it was possible. In a single night, the value of this cigarette box increased by 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times. The reason for this was because of the cigarette box's owner, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal. That was the most tragic battle ever fought by humanity. Due to Artoria's betrayal, the Martyr's Palace launched a frenzied attack on Yangjing City. 7 of the 10 monarchs of the Martyr's Palace took the field, and 2 of the 4 sages took action. On the other side, Yuzhang City and Yangjing City formed an allied human army. The 2 forces finally clashed at Kaishiji. Once again, one of the most important battles in human history took place on this ancient battlefield. The battle at Kaishiji was extremely tragic, and the most tragic was the battle at Taibai Tower. The Nazi King Hitler and the hero King Gilgamesh of the 10 monarchs of the Martyrs' Palace launched a cruel attack on the Yangjing City defenders at Taibai Tower. At that time, the defenders fought bravely under the leadership of the Golden Saint Sword Immortal. The tragic battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and in the end, there were only 12 sword-bearers left in the entire Taibai Tower: the Golden Saint Sword Immortal, 3 spirit sword-bearers, and 8 famed sword-bearers. Just as the Nazi King and the Hero King were about to launch their final attack, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal suddenly took out the Phantom Valley from his inner pocket. This was his favorite treasure. He never kept the Phantom Valley in his dimensional pocket, but always kept it close to his body. However, this Phantom Valley wasn't just a collector's item. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal still put some cigarettes produced in the future into the cigarette box. At this time, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal opened the cigarette box and was surprised to find that there were exactly 12 cigarettes left inside. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal sighed in his heart as he distributed the 12 cigarettes to the remaining 11 people. The Golden Saint Sword Immortal took a puff first, then said to the remaining 11 swordbearers calmly, "Today, we're just like these cigarettes, destined to burn out. At this time, any more words are just nonsense. I just want to tell everyone that our sacrifice is not in vain. After a few years, we will be forever remembered by future generations along with this cigarette. After smoking this cigarette, you can be a Yangjing citizen in your next life." After saying that, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal smoked the entire cigarette in one breath, not taking a single breath in between. The other sword-bearers also followed the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's example and finished the cigarette in one breath. Many of them had never smoked before, and this puff of smoke made them choke quite badly. Some of them even had snot and tears flowing out. In the end, just as the Golden Saint Sword Immortal had said, none of the 12 people survived. They all died in battle at Taibai Building. However, before the Golden Saint Sword Immortal died, he also killed the Nazi King Hitler and severely injured Gilgamesh. In the official propaganda, the Nazi King Hitler was already dead. However, there were also rumors that the Nazi King Hitler wasn't dead. He was just hiding in a dimensional rift to recuperate. This was because among the 10 kings announced by the Martyrs' Palace, the Nazi King's name had never been removed. This was because according to the rules of the Martyrs' Palace, if one of the 10 kings died in battle, the positions of the 10 kings would definitely be rearranged. By the way, King Arthur Artoria's name hadn't been removed from the list of 10 kings either. Later, when people cleaned up the battlefield, they were surprised to find that the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had been preserved in perfect condition. Inside the cigarette box, there were 12 short wills left by the sword-bearers for their families. It was also because of these 12 wills that the Golden Saint Sword Immortal had carefully hidden the cigarette box and managed to preserve it. After this battle, the price of the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box instantly rose from 100,000 renminbi to 9 billion renminbi. At the time, Bai Xiao Jiandi had offered to buy the cigarette box from the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family for 9 billion renminbi and then store it in the Yangjing City Hall of Heroes forever. However, the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family refused. Later on, this story was turned into an essay by an author under the title The 12 Heroes of Taibai Tower. It was then chosen as a language textbook for primary school students, becoming a textbook that every primary school student had to read. The Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box naturally became famous along with this essay, becoming a testimony of an era. The price of the blood and tears of a group of heroes also soared from 9 billion renminbi to 30 billion renminbi, becoming one of the top 10 non-supernatural relics. Unfortunately, ever since the Golden Saint Sword Immortal's family gradually disappeared in the long river of history, the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had become an unsolved mystery. No one knew where this precious relic was hidden. The 30 billion renminbi price on the relic exchange website was just a price. No one had ever really taken this item out. People even suspected that the precious Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box had already been destroyed. Who would have thought that it would be hidden in the hands of the Lionian family, appearing in front of Guhan just like that? After thinking about it carefully, this was not strange. Wasn't it very normal for such a precious item to appear in the hands of the world's #1 family? Senior, what do you mean by this? Guhan did not know why fleeting wooden fish would give such a precious item to him together with the green severed hair. Of course it's for you. Fleeting wooden fish pushed the cigarette box and the green severed hair back to Guhan. You can either take them together, or you can leave them behind. Fleeting wooden fish's words confused Guhan even more. Based on what he said, the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box was actually bound to the green severed hair. Guhan could either take them together, or leave them behind. But why was that? Could it be that fleeting wooden fish thought that the Ghost Valley descending the mountain cigarette box was not precious enough? Grandpa, you can't. Rina Takasaka suddenly rushed to Guhan's side and knelt in front of fleeting wooden fish. She kowtowed and said in a sobbing voice, Grandpa, you promised me. You'll return it to me as long as I complete your request. I did promise you, but have you completed my request? Fleeting wooden fish's words were like a sharp knife that pierced deep into Rina Takasaka's heart. Rina Takasaka slumped to the ground, unable to say a word. Chapter 707. Senior, I'm afraid that these two treasures are not as simple as they seem, right? Guhan's eyes wandered back and forth between the severed green hair and the haunted valley painting. Please enlighten me on the meaning behind these two treasures. You'll know once you open this cigarette box. Fleeting Time tapped on the cigarette box. Guhan picked up the cigarette box that was worth 30 billion yen and opened the lid. He was surprised to find a small note hidden inside. He even took out the note from the pack of cigarettes. When Rina Takasaka saw the note, her body trembled even more violently. She had the urge to snatch the note from Ji-Yuhan's hand, but she managed to suppress that urge in the end. Ji-Yuhan slowly unfolded the piece of paper and found that there were no complicated words on it. There was only a simple date written on it, July 6, 2992. The 6th of July? Isn't this my birthday? Guhan was surprised to see the date on the note. It was Guhan's birthday. However, Guhan was born on the 6th of July, 2990, 2 years earlier than the date on the note. Senior Liu Nian, I don't understand what you mean. What is the meaning of the date on this piece of paper? Ji-Yuhan asked again. Rina, I'll leave this question to you. Fleeting Time wooden fish did not answer the question directly. Instead, he pushed the question to Rina Kosaka. This is. Rina Takasaka stuttered for a long time, but she couldn't finish her sentence. This is your birthday, right? Am I right? Guhan could vaguely guess what was going on when he saw Rina Kosaka's expression. So, Ji-Yuhan didn't wait for Rina Takasaka to answer and asked her directly. How did you know? Takasaka Rina raised her head in shock. It was only then that Ji-Yuhan realized that Takasaka Rina's face was covered in tears. She was completely sobbing. It seems that this really is Rina Kosaka's birthday. That's right. This is Rina Kosaka's birthday. Before the apocalypse, there was a saying called the 8 characters of one's birth. Fleeting Time wooden fish suddenly spoke. It's a pity that humans have lost the method of calculating the almanac, and are unable to convert the 8 characters of one's birth into a 60-year period. The almanac and the 60-year period were things that only existed in legends. It was said that humans in China did not use the AD to calculate time. Instead, they used a 60-year period called the almanac to record the changes of time. It was just that with the extinction of culture, no one knew about this complicated 60-year cycle anymore, and it gradually became a legend. Ji-Yuhan originally thought that the Liu Nian clan had hidden a 60-year cycle conversion method. Unexpectedly, even the Liu Nian clan had completely severed this inheritance. This box of cigarettes was left behind by Lena's mother. Do you understand the meaning behind it? Said Fleeting Time wooden fish as he looked at the box of cigarettes with a complicated look on his face. I think I understand a little. In fact, Gu Han already understood the meaning behind the fleeting wooden fish. I think I understand a little. In truth, Guhan already understood the meaning behind fleeting time wooden fish's words. In those articles, the 8 characters of one's birth were closely related to the fate of the person who wrote them. Not only could people before the apocalypse use the 8 characters of one's birth to predict a person's fate, but they could also use the 8 characters of one's birth to match the marriage between 2 people. In other words, once a person gave their birth to you, it meant that the person would be tied to you forever. It was a very important contract. He finally understood why Rina Kosaka was so excited when she saw the cigarette box and the note in it. It turned out that the box was closely related to her marriage. Since you understand it, it saves me the trouble of explaining. Fleeting time wooden fish nodded. Then I'll make it clear. You can either leave the way you came here, or you can take this box and sever black hair with you. From today onwards, Rina Kosaka is your wife. You have to treat her well for the rest of her life, and you're not allowed to pester Ling. Do you understand? Gu Han really didn't understand. What the hell was going on? Why did a wife suddenly appear out of nowhere? And I'm not allowed to pester Ling? To be honest, I feel that Liunian Ling is more likely to pester me. Senior fleeting time, I think you've misunderstood. If it's because of Ling, then I can assure you that I have no other thoughts about Ling. Please don't pin Miss Lena's life on me. Gu Han returned Gui Gu's cigarette box to fleeting time wooden fish and said solemnly, "Don't worry, Gui Gu. Actually, these are 2 different things. Whether or not Lena is involved, Lena is going to marry you." Fleeting time wooden fish paused for a moment before continuing, "You can have a few wives in the future, but Rina must be your legal wife. You are not allowed to owe her anything. You must love her with all your heart and treat her well for the rest of her life. If Rina gives birth to a child, then you must make this child your legal heir. Your future will be entrusted to this child." Hearing fleeting wooden fish's words, Gu Han finally understood why fleeting wooden fish had so readily handed over the severed black hair. Fleeting time wooden fish was aware of his potential, and was planning to share his future with Rina Kosaka. Rina Kosaka addressed fleeting time wooden fish as her grandfather, and the 2 of them might be related by blood. This was similar to the marriages between royal families in ancient times. Fleeting time wooden fish was already plotting against his heir, and was trying to decide on the position of crown prince. It had to be said that fleeting time wooden fish's plan was huge and far in the future. He would have to wait for a few decades before he could see the real benefits. By that time, fleeting time wooden fish would most likely be dead. This was a very long-term plan, and it was all about Guhan's future. But fleeting time wooden fish thought too highly of him. Even if he knew of his potential, his identity as the military governor in the game, and even the fact that he possessed the 9 swords of Black Heaven. But what did all of this mean? Did it represent his future? Who could predict the future? A small accident could kill a genius in the middle of nowhere. It was not as if such a thing had never happened before. Why would fleeting wooden fish bet Takasaka Rina's happiness on himself? Well, these were all questions that fleeting time wooden fish should be thinking about. Guhan did not need to think about it. The only thing Guhan needed to think about was whether he should agree to fleeting time wooden fish's conditions. Through marriage, he could obtain the black hair that he desperately needed. Just as Cruel Cold was seriously considering this question, Guhan felt someone tugging at the corner of his shirt. Guhan lowered his head and saw Rina Kosaka's pleading eyes. Her fair hands tugged at the corner of his shirt, and her eyes were filled with endless pleading. She looked at Guhan with tears in her eyes, begging Guhan not to agree to the deal. "Forget it. I can do whatever it takes, but this matter concerns my future and marriage. I can't just give it away like this. The Fleeting Time family isn't the only one who has the black hair. When the Octagon Conference is held in a few days, the representatives from the Moscow-based city will also come. I'll discuss with them and see if I can get the precious black hair from the Moscow-based city." Guhan had an answer in his heart after he thought it through. Hence, he pushed the green severed hair and the Phantom Valley down the mountain cigarette box back to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish. He cupped his fists and said, "I appreciate your kind intentions, Senior Fleeting Time, but I cannot accept such a trade. I wonder if Senior Fleeting Time is willing to change the terms of the deal. If not, I'll have to return the way I came. Rina Kosaka's heart was finally at ease when she heard Guhan's reply. She looked at Guhan with gratitude. I knew you'd refuse. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish shrugged, but don't worry. Take a look at these things before you make your decision. As soon as Fleeting Time Wooden Fish finished speaking, a ray of light shot out from a corner of the room, projecting a picture in front of Guhan. Guhan took a closer look, and discovered that it was a picture of a player's stats. Apart from the stats, there were many other data that should not have been revealed. The player's name was Carefree, which sounded like the name of a little girl. He was a famed sword wielder with 90,000 quarks of sword essence. His dungeon clearing record was at least S rank, and he was considered an expert among famed sword players. On the list of sword ladies, Ji Han suddenly discovered that this Carefree famed sword lady actually had the words King of Yu Go Gen Gen written on it. The player's famed sword wielder was the same as Guhan's, the Yu Kings Go Gen. More importantly, there was a series of statistics at the end of the status window. The data analysis was very complicated, so I won't explain it in detail here. In any case, according to the final data analysis, if this player named Carefree could synchronize with King Yu Go Gen in real life, his success rate would be as high as 23%. Guhan's body trembled, and he noticed that Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was looking at him with a faint smile on his face. Senior, is this player one of your men? Guhan asked with a pale face. No. I wouldn't have shown you this list if he was one of my men. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish, may be overbearing, but I don't use such things to threaten others. Just treat this as a piece of information. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish knocked on the table and said, then I'll be a good guy until the very end. I'll tell you this player's real name as well. You two know each other in real life. His father has just died fighting for Yuzhang City. Chapter 708. I know. Guhan nodded. Between intelligent people, there was no need to say too much. The person Fleeting Time Wooden Fish was referring to was Ku Rokin. In fact, Guhan could vaguely sense this as well. When he first met Jiu Elvrin and Jiu Elvrin said that he had to coordinate the King of Yu's Go Gen sword, Jiu Han had a vague feeling that this person might really succeed. However, he did not expect Ku Rokin to have a success rate of over 90%. This was not much different from a 100% success rate. Actually, Tian Hen helped you secretly. Otherwise, your Yu King Gojen sword would have been gone a long time ago. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish then sent a document to Guhan. Guhan broke out in cold sweat after reading it. Who would have thought that Zhu Luren would go and coordinate with the King of Yu, Go Gen Gen? If it weren't for Sword Immortal Tian Hen's new rule, the King of Yu, Go Gen Gen Gen, would probably have already become Zhu Luren's sword mistress. If that were really the case, would he still be able to kill Zhu Luren? I don't mind telling you one more thing. Tian Hen's condition is to defeat any one of the top 20 sword wielders in Yangjing City. Only then will you be qualified to coordinate with the Yu King Gojen sword. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish waved his hand, and a video of Ku Rokin was projected onto the screen. Ku Rokin is very persistent. He has been challenging the people on the list since early this morning. However, I've already ordered the people on the list to avoid Ku Rokin's challenge. Otherwise, with Ku Rokin's strength, I'm afraid that half of the people on the list are no match for him. 19 of them have respected my orders, but the last person on the list has ignored them. He will definitely accept Ku Rokin's challenge. You can guess the result. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's words stabbed into Guhan's heart. Ku Rokin was entering a residential building. Clearly, the last person on the list was staying there. If Ku Rokin won, then there was a 90% chance that the Yu King would be gone forever. It'll take me 2 hours to get back to Yangjing City. A battle between sword wielders usually ends within 20 minutes. If Ku Rokin wins, then he'll definitely head to Sword Tower immediately. I won't be able to catch up to him no matter what. If Ku Rokin loses, then there's no need for me to agree to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's condition. No, these sword-wielders who refused to fight with Ku-Rokin did so because of the Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's order. If Fleeting Time Wooden Fish retracted his order, then Ku-Rokin might be able to coordinate with the Yu King Gojien's sword at any time. But I'll need at least 2 months to get the severed black hair from Moscow City. God knows what will happen in these 2 months. I can't drag this on any longer. I'm racing against time. As these thoughts flashed through Guhan's mind, he suddenly realized that the best thing he could do was to agree to Fleeting Time Wooden Fish's condition. Otherwise, there was a high chance that Ku-Rokin would be able to coordinate with the Yu King Gojien sword before he could. Actually, there's no need for 2 hours. I have a quantum teleportation circle that connects to Yangjing City. You can return to Yangjing City in 5 seconds. It shouldn't be a problem for you to make it in time for the battle. Fleeting Time Wooden Fish pushed the severed black hair and Phantom Valley's cigarette box back to Guhan. Of course, this quantum teleportation circle can only be used by those who are related to the Fleeting Time family. It's up to you to decide. At that moment, both Fleeting Time Wooden Fish and Rina Takasaka turned to look at Guhan. None of them knew what answer Guhan would give. Hello. May I know if Comrade LV How is in? Ku-Rokin pressed the doorbell, but he did not have much hope for the answer. Since all 19 people on the list were being manipulated by the same organization, how could the 20th person be an exception? In fact, Ju Elvrin had wanted to give up halfway, but he had been holding back his urge to walk all the way here. He wanted to give it one last try no matter what. Hello, I'm LV How. Why are you looking for me? Hearing a rough male voice admitting that he was the person on the list, hot tears almost flowed out of the corner of Ju Elvrin's eyes. It had been 19 times, and he had finally heard from the person on the list that he was here. It's like this. I'd like to spar with you. Ku-Rokin used the word you, which was the biggest concession he could make. He would not even use the word you when speaking to his father. Spar. Ku-Rokin could hear the excitement in the man's voice. The door was pulled open, and a rugged and energetic face appeared in front of Ku-Rokin. Exchanging pointers is good, I like exchanging pointers the most. Lu Hao touched his head and said with an excited face. LV Hao's house was not far from Yangjing City's Colosseum. It was only about 2 to 3 kilometers away. In less than 10 minutes, the two of them could already see the grand, circular Colosseum. LV Hao and Ku-Rokin registered at the Colosseum's management office and received a permit to use the arena. The two of them were allowed to fight as they pleased in the arena. Once the shields of the opponent's sword maidens or the swordsman's own shields were destroyed, the match would be over. The swordsman's life was not allowed to be harmed. Comrade LV Hao, please. Ku-Rokin and LV Hao stood in the arena. Ku-Rokin gestured for LV Hao to begin. All right. LV Hao said proudly. He immediately released his sword maiden and introduced, Comrade Ku-Rokin, this is my treasured sword, the Pyongyang sword. It is ranked 7th in the treasured sword record. Pyongyang sword. Legend has it that it was a treasured sword used by East Flower immortal Lu Dongbin when he was demoted to immortal. After Lu Dongbin ascended, the sword was stained with some immortal qi. However, it was not qualified to be an immortal sword. Lu Dongbin left it in the mortal world and it became a treasured sword's sword maiden. The Pyongyang sword was ranked 7th in the treasured sword record. Sword maidens who could be ranked in the top 10 were not simple characters. Comrade Ku-Rokin, I've already introduced myself. Aren't you going to introduce yourself? LV Hao suddenly patted his head and said in sudden realization, oh, I understand. The little girl on your neck is your sword maiden, right? The little girl on my neck. Ku-Rokin was stunned at first. Then, he saw 2 small feet swaying from the corner of his eyes. Ku-Rokin had completely forgotten that Shosho was still sitting on his neck. Over the past few dozen days, ever since the little girl he picked up from the emergency response center woke up, she had been with him. She treated Ku-Rokin's neck as her nest. Ku-Rokin was completely used to her existence. So much so that he did not react at all even though there was a person sitting on his neck. No, she's not my sword maiden. Ku-Rokin quickly took Shosho off his neck and put her on the side of the ring. It would have been best to put Shosho on the audience seat. However, the match had already begun. If Ku Rokin took the initiative to leave the ring, it would mean that he had admitted defeat. So, Ku Rokin had no choice but to put Sho Sho on the side of the ring. After reminding her that she must not come to the center of the ring, he took out his sword maiden and faced LV Hao. "Comrade Ku Rokin, why don't you release the sword maiden?" LV Hao immediately patted his head after saying that. "I understand. You must be the sword master, right?" "That's right." Ku Rokin nodded and admitted. "That's great. I've always been fighting with sword maidens. I've never sparred with a real sword master. Now, I can finally experience it." LV Hao was so excited that he almost jumped up. He put the sword maiden, who had been released, back into the sword and held it in his hand. Then, he said loudly, "Comrade Ku Rokin, I'm actually the swordmaster too. Let's have a passionate battle. Who the hell wants to have a passionate battle with you?" Ku Rokin secretly cursed in his heart. However, he did not look down on LV Hao. From LV Hao's body, he could see that LV Hao's strength was not inferior to his own. In the next moment, the two sword masters started fighting each other. There was nothing much to write about the battle between the two of them. Even if it was written, no one would be interested in watching it. After the two of them exchanged dozens of blows, the spectators could gradually see some clues. In terms of swordsmanship, Ku Rokin's swordsmanship was higher than LV Hao's. His swordsmanship was more exquisite and proficient. Ku Rokin was like an old swordsman who had been immersed in swordsmanship for decades, while LV Hao was like a newbie who had only been practicing swordsmanship for a few years. In terms of talent, LV Hao was slightly stronger. However, in terms of experience, he was not as good as Ku Rokin. In terms of swordsmanship, Ku Rokin would be able to defeat LV Hao within 100 moves. However, in fact, Ku Rokin was already at a disadvantage. This was because LV Hao was wielding the Pure Yang sword. Pure Yang sword. The sword contained a strong Pure Yang power, which could double LV Hao's defensive power, and at the same time, reduce the consumption of sword essence by half. If the sword wielder was a boy, the Pure Yang power could double the sword wielder's attack power. In any case, the Pure Yang power's buff was very terrifying. Relying on this buff, LV Hao was able to suppress Ku Rokin. In less than 50 to 60 moves, Ku Rokin was already in a difficult situation. His personal shield was constantly being depleted and it was on the verge of shattering. "Damn it, I'll fight it out." Seeing that he was about to be defeated, Ku Rokin made up his mind and used his ultimate move to perish together with his opponent. He ignored his defense and increased his attack power. If he could hit LV Hao's vital points, he would be able to shatter LV Hao's personal shield in one move. At the very least, it would turn into a draw. For the sake of the Go Jian sword, the King of Yu, in his heart, Zhu Elvren had no distractions in his mind. The sword strike he performed could be said to be an extraordinary performance, accurately hitting the vital part of LV Hao's personal shield. Then, just as Ku Rokin had planned, LV Hao's personal shield shattered into pieces. "I won." Ku Rokin thought excitedly. He was so excited that he wanted to shout. "You lost." But in the next second, LV Hao's personal shield suddenly reappeared, and it reappeared in a state of 100% energy. This instantly turned Ku Rokin into a dumbfounded chicken. He did not even have time to react to LV Hao's next attack. He took LV Hao's attack head-on. At that moment, Ku Rokin's personal shield had less than 8% energy. LV Hao's attack could completely shatter Ku Rokin's personal shield in one move. Chapter 709. I'm going to lose. Victory and defeat were often decided in an instant. One moment, Ku Rokin was celebrating his victory, and the next moment, he was shocked by his defeat. Then, in the next moment, he felt a force pulling him from behind, and he flew out in an instant, falling face first onto the ground. Although this posture was a little ugly, it allowed Zhu Elvren to avoid a fatal blow and preserve the last bit of energy of his personal shield. Sho Sho. Zhu Luren was surprised to find that the person who pulled him back from the edge of defeat was actually Sho Sho, who he had placed in the corner of the arena just now. This little girl was standing opposite LV How at this time. She looked at him angrily and asked with a pout, "Why did you hit my father?" "I didn't hit your dad." LV How realized that he was indeed hitting Ku Rokin, so he rubbed his head in distress and changed his words. "I was just sparring with your dad, understand? It was just a sparring. I didn't really want to hurt your dad." "I didn't. You were hitting my dad." "Since you hit my dad, I will hit you," Shosho said angrily. Then, one of her ponytails suddenly grew and hardened, and took the initiative to stretch into her hand. After a while, her hair actually turned into the shape of a long sword. "You really are a sword maiden. Comrade Ku Rokin even lied to me that you weren't a sword maiden." LV How saw that there was an additional sword in Shosho's hand. Although the appearance of the sword was very strange, it was actually made out of hair. But it was nothing. Some sword maidens' swords even extended out of their fingernails. Shosho. Seeing this scene, Ku Rokin, who was behind Shosho, was a little dumbfounded. He had always thought that Shosho was just an ordinary human, and never thought that Shosho actually had the ability to shoot swords. This was definitely not an ability that a normal human should have. Could it be that Shosho was really a sword maiden? But that was not right. There were only 2 sword scars in his body, and Shosho did not have any relationship with him. Then, Shosho was someone else's sword maiden? That's not right either. Shosho had been by his side for more than 30 days. During these 30 days, Shosho had never left his side. They had spent more than 95% of their time together, including sleeping time. Which sword wielder would allow his sword mistress to do such a thing? Unless the sword wielder was dead. But if the sword wielder was really dead, then there was no reason for Shosho to be alive and kicking. She should have returned to her sword form. There was only one possibility left. Shosho was neither a human nor a sword maiden. She was a Yuan Ku. But if Shosho was really Yuan Ku, then there were still some things that could not be explained. The base city was the most heavily guarded place against Yuan Ku. First of all, Yuan Ku couldn't pass through the dimensional barrier around the base city, not to mention the Yuan Ku scanning system that was working all the time. For the entire day, Ku Rokin had been running around the city with Sasha. It was impossible for them to escape the surveillance system. If Shosho was really Yuan Ku, then Shosho would have been captured by the people of Yangjing City long ago. How could she have survived until now? But if Shosho wasn't a sword maiden or Yuan Ku, then what kind of existence was she? Regarding this, Ku Rokin felt confused. He couldn't understand it at all. On one side, Ku Rokin was racking his brain thinking. On the other side, LV How and Shosho were fighting. "You must be Comrade Ku Rokin's ancient sword grade sword maiden." LV How rubbed his head. "Master taught me not to use a sword maiden that is of a higher grade to fight with other sword wielders. Then I'll use an ancient sword grade sword maiden to fight with you." LV How was indeed a practical person. He immediately put away his treasured sword grade sword maiden, the Pure Yang sword, and took out his ancient sword grade sword maiden. Compared to the Pure Yang sword, LV Hao's ancient sword grade sword maiden wasn't considered outstanding. It was ranked in the middle of the ancient sword record. "Little lady, come on." LV Hao gave Shosho a simple and honest smile. He took the initiative to take a defensive stance. Clearly, he wanted Shosho to attack first. Shosho wasn't as simple and honest as LV Hao. She raised her hair sword and immediately attacked. Not good. Shosho doesn't know any sword techniques. She's not LV Hao's match. At this moment, Ku Rokin shifted his attention away from what Shosho was. He started to pay attention to the battle between Shosho and LV Hao. Therefore, Ku Rokin quickly realized that Shosho was a complete idiot when it came to sword techniques. Shosho's attack was like that of a primary school student. It was straightforward and didn't have any variations. Anyone who had learned sword techniques for a few months would be able to easily dodge Shosho's attack. To a sword master like LV Hao, dodging Shosho's attack was as easy as eating and drinking. "This little lady, your sword techniques can't be used like this. Don't you know sword techniques?" LV Hao, who was Shosho's opponent, was also surprised. Although the sword techniques of the sword maidens were not uniform, More than 98% of them were far above the standards of humans. This was also the reason why humans didn't consider learning sword techniques and becoming sword masters. Instead, they let the sword maidens fight on their own. However, there weren't many sword maidens like Shosho, who knew nothing about sword techniques. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Chilean horns. Could it be that this lady is the sword maiden that we just discovered? So she isn't very proficient in sword techniques? LV How pondered for a moment and felt that he needed to help this new sword maiden. Therefore, LV How, who could have dodged the attack, did not. Instead, he gently used his sword to lift Shosho's hair sword. He was prepared to use battle techniques to teach this new sword maiden a lesson. However, when his sword came into contact with Shosho's hair sword, he was completely stunned. He did not move at all. He allowed Shosho's sword to stab his body, causing his personal shield to shake. After a full 10 seconds, LV How finally broke free from this daze. In these 10 seconds, Shosho had used her chaotic sword techniques to leave more than 10 marks on LV How's personal shield. This is the ability to freeze the body. LV How, who had returned to normal, was a little surprised, but only a little. There were many sword maidens with the ability to freeze the body, but the duration of the freeze was less than 5 seconds. There were not many sword maidens that could freeze the body for 10 seconds, and this was an ancient sword maiden. I understand. This must be Shosho's ultimate skill. That's why she can freeze the body for 10 seconds. Ultimate skills have their own limits. Now, Shosho can't freeze me for another 10 seconds. LV How told himself. Then, facing Shosho's attacking hair sword, LV How gently pushed it back. As a result, LV How's face was slapped again. The moment his sword maiden and Shosho's hair sword came into contact, LV How was once again frozen and could not move. After another 10 seconds, LV How regained his ability to move. F***CK. Her ultimate skill doesn't even have a cooldown? LV How, who had regained his ability to move, complained in his heart. Shosho's ability was too strange. According to LV How, in this world, there was no sword mistress who could use the ability to freeze for 10 seconds as an ordinary attack. Could it be that this Shosho was also a sword mistress of Spirit Sword Realm? There must be something I didn't think of. LV How secretly said to himself. In fact, he suddenly realized that every time his sword came into contact with Shosho's sword, it would happen. If his sword didn't come into contact with Shosho's sword, would he be able to avoid the state of being frozen? Thinking of this, LV How couldn't wait to give it a try. So, when Shosho attacked again, LV How beautifully turned around and dodged Shosho's sword. His body and sword did not come into contact with Shosho, and at the same time, he placed his sword on Shosho's neck. Then LV How was frozen again, and then couldn't move for another 10 seconds. Once again, LV How became extremely vigilant. He tried to use his swift sword to attack Shosho, but when the tip of his sword pierced into Shosho's body, LV How was naturally immobilized. After 5 or 6 times of torture, LV How finally understood. It was not that he would be frozen when he came into contact with Shosho's sword, but as long as he came into contact with any part of Shosho, he would be frozen. This was simply a bug ability. If you want to defeat Shosho, you must come into contact with Shosho's body. And once you come into contact with Shosho's body, you will immediately be frozen. In this way, there were only 2 ways to defeat Shosho. One was to defeat Shosho with a long-range attack without direct contact, and the second was to defeat Shosho with a shortkill attack. However, LV How was only a treasure sword wielder. Whether it was his ancient sword wielder or treasure sword wielder, they did not have long-range attack abilities, so the first method could not be achieved. Similarly, LV How's attack power could not directly kill Shosho, so every time he attacked, he had to endure a 10-second freeze. This had already doomed LV How to failure. Although LV How was very unwilling, when he was frozen for the 6th time, Shosho successfully broke his personal shield. I've lost. Seeing that his personal shield had been broken, Lu Hao willingly admitted defeat. But unexpectedly, after LV Hao admitted defeat, Shosho did not seem to have the awareness to stop attacking. Instead, She still wanted to attack LV Hao. LV Hao's personal shield had already been broken. If Xiaoxiao's attack successfully hit LV Hao, then LV Hao would very likely be seriously injured, and might even die on the spot. Killing someone during a spar was a big taboo in every headquarter city. Even if Ku Rokin had a powerful background, he would immediately be caught by the discipline committee. Aside from death, there was no other way out. But thinking about it, this was actually a good thing for Guhan. As long as Xiaoxiao killed LV Hao, then Ku Rokin would never be able to synchronize the King of Yu Gojian sword. Chapter 710. Xiaoxiao. Stop. At this critical moment, Ku Rokin finally reacted, and shouted with all his might. When Xiaoxiao's sword was 1 meter away from LV Hao's body, the jet-black sword finally stopped, and disappeared from Xiaoxiao's hand, turning back into hair. Daddy. Xiaoxiao jumped back onto Ku Rokin's shoulder. Ku Rokin hurriedly walked to LV Hao's side, and apologized. I'm sorry. Comrade LV Hao, I was distracted for a moment. Forget it. LV Hao waved his hand nonchalantly, as if he did not know that he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. Not only were you distracted, even I was distracted. Comrade Ku Rokin, your Lady Xiaoxiao can't be an ancient sword maiden, right? I think she's at least a famed sword maiden. Even if you beat LV Hao to death, LV Hao would not believe that an ancient sword rank sword mistress could possess such a heaven-defying control ability. Just based on this ability, even if Xiaoxiao's basic attributes were the same as an ancient sword maiden, she should still be ranked among the famed sword maidens. No. Xiaoxiao is an ancient sword rank sword maiden. What else could Zhu Elvrin say? He could only bite the bullet and admit that Xiaoxiao was his ancient sword rank sword maiden. Xiaoxiao, who had such an ability, was definitely not human. If he did not admit that Xiaoxiao was a sword maiden, then wouldn't Xiaoxiao be a Yuan Ku? Yangjing City would not allow a Yuan Ku to stay in the city. This is really strange. What's Xiaoxiao's name? I'll go home and do some research. Just based on this ability alone, even the number 1 ancient sword maiden, the Yixian sword, cannot compare to her. LV Hao said with envy and curiosity. How would Ku Rokin know what Xiaoxiao's name was? From the day he met Xiaoxiao, Xiaoxiao had only called herself Xiaoxiao, and when he asked for her name, he did not know. She also did not remember anything in the past, as if she had completely lost her memory. Her name is Sword. Ku Rokin answered with a very vague voice, so LV Hao didn't hear it clearly. Just when he was about to ask again, he suddenly heard Ku Rokin quickly say, Comrade LV Hao, can I ask you to help me prove something? Ku Rokin finally said his original purpose. Proof? What proof? LV Hao asked, not knowing why. It's like this. I wish to coordinate with your esteemed city's King of Yu, Gojian. I just heard that your city has recently announced a new rule. If someone from another city wants to synchronize with the famous sword mistress of your city, then they must defeat you, Comrade Lu Hao, who is ranked in the top 20 in the city. That's why I'm here to spar with you. Ku Rokin briefly explained the situation. I see. No problem. Lu Hao agreed very readily, but he immediately rubbed his head in annoyance and said, I've also heard about this matter. The Sword Firmament Pavilion even specially sent us a few proof forms, saying that filling in the proof forms would prove that we were defeated. If I hadn't met you, Comrade Ku Rokin, I would have thought that apart from Guhan in Changyang Mountain, no one in the world would be a match for me. That's why I don't know where I left that stupid form at home. Why don't you come with me first? I'll help you write a form when I find it. LV Hao's face was a little red as he said this. He really thought that apart from Guhan, he was undefeatable in the world. But in the end, he had been defeated by Ku Rokin. This made him, who was naturally forthright and prideful, blush. Thank you, Comrade LV Hao. After experiencing 19 defeats, Ku Rokin, who had finally seen the light of hope, did not mind going home to get a form. He immediately nodded to express his gratitude. All right, we got to know each other after a fight. Let's not call each other comrade in the future. It's so awkward. From now on, we're brothers. I'll call you Brother LV Ren, and I'll call you Brother LV Hao. Brother LV Ren, what do you think? Not really, Brother LV How. Ku Rokin said with a smile. And so, the two people who had just come to the arena from LV Hao's house returned to LV Hao's house. However, Ku Rokin had only stood in front of LV Hao's house for a while. This time, he entered LV Hao's house. But what Ku Rokin did not expect was that LV Hao's house was very messy. All kinds of household garbage were randomly thrown on the ground. There were also 10 rice bowls stacked on the table. These bowls had dried and crusted oil stains on them, and there were maggots constantly moving in the shadows. These bowls had not been washed for at least a month. Besides the mess on the table, the floor of LV Hao's house was also terrible. All kinds of household garbage were randomly thrown on the ground. A lot of clothes were thrown away along with the garbage. These clothes had been soaked with sweat, and a sweaty smell constantly drifted out from the clothes. Ju Elvren, who was neat by nature, had a faint feeling of nausea when he smelled this smell. Hihi, I'm a man. Life is always about small things. You don't have to worry about these things. Go to the sofa and rest for a while. I'll go find the certificate for you. LV Hao smiled and let Ku Rokin sit on his sofa. However, when he walked to the sofa and took a look, he found that Ju Elvren's face had turned purple. The sofa was not clean either. There were all kinds of underwear on it. Some of the underwear even had a faint yellow stain on it, giving off a foul smell. Only God knew what the yellow stain was. Judging from the underwear on the sofa, LV Hao still knew that underwear needed to pay special attention to hygiene. He did not mix these underwear with clothes and threw them on the ground. This was also a manifestation of hygiene. How could Ku Rokin still sit on this kind of sofa? He immediately took a dozen steps back, trying to stay away from the sofa. Then he moved a chair from under the dining table. He took out a towel from his pocket and carefully wiped the chair. It became the cleanest object in LV Hao's house. After Ku Rokin sat on the chair in boredom for dozens of minutes, LV Hao walked out of his room with a confused look. He touched his head and said to himself, "Strange, I remember this certificate was clearly left at home. Why can't I find it after looking for a long time? It's broken. Could it be that I went to the toilet that day?" Well, hearing LV Hao talking to himself, Ku Rokin also guessed what happened. It was definitely that LV Hao lacked toilet paper when he went to the toilet. So he used the certificate that he didn't care about as toilet paper to wipe his butt. That was why he couldn't find it after looking for more than 30 minutes. Thinking of this, Ku Rokin couldn't help but sigh. He felt that most of his life's bad luck might have been squeezed out on this day. Brother LV Hao, your house is really messy. How do you usually survive? Ku Rokin's Chunibya disease began to act up again. He began to unceremoniously blame LV Hao's house. Is it messy? I don't think it's messy at all, LV Hao said in amazement. It seemed that he really thought his house was very clean and tidy. He even argued, I know where my things are, and the location is very convenient. I can find what I need as fast as possible. Unlike other people who have to hide things in cabinets. It's not convenient at all. I'm hungry. Let's not talk about the things we use for the time being. Can't you clean the house? Don't you think the smell of the air here is a bit weird? Ku Rokin said again. That's true. Sometimes I can't stand this smell, LV Hao said with deep understanding. If even a careless person like him couldn't stand it, everyone could imagine how unbearable the smell was. Actually, Brother LV Hao, why don't you go to the maid service center to find a maid? Let her help you tidy up the house. Isn't that good? Ku Rokin suggested. No. Absolutely not. LV Hao hurriedly waved his hand. Brother LV Ren, I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. I'm the most lecherous person. If she hangs around in front of me every day, I definitely won't be able to resist doing her. If she does, then so be it. Aren't maids supposed to be used for sex? Ku Rokin said matter-of-factly. In his own house, he often had sex with his own maids. I want to, but I can't. At this point, LV Hao's expression was as miserable as it could be. Brother LV Ren, you know that my ship girl is the pure young goddess. Only by maintaining her virginity can she unleash the full power of the pure yang sword. If I lose my virginity, I'm afraid my strength will drop by more than half. How would I dare? Alright, this was indeed an unavoidable problem. If one wanted to be the number one in Yangjing City, they had to pay a price. And the price LV Hao paid was this messy living environment and the miserable days of not being able to do it even though he had a bunch of women to do it with. Alright, Ku Rokin no longer had the mood to care about LV Hao. He only wanted to know what he should do after losing the crucial proof form. Just as Ku Rokin was about to ask about it, LV Hao pulled on Ku Rokin's hand. Brother LV Ren, don't worry. It's just a small matter. If you lose the proof form, you can just get another one. Stay at my place tonight. Tomorrow, I'll go with you to the Swordsman Service Center to get the proof form. What do you think? Even if Ku Rokin had the patience to wait until the next day, Ku Rokin didn't have the guts to stay at LV Hao's place. A place like this couldn't be lived in with just guts. Why don't you try staying in the latrine for a night? No. I'm in a hurry. Brother LV Hao, let's go to the Swordsman Service Center now. I don't want to drag this out any longer. Ku Rokin held LV Hao's hand tightly. Then let's go. LV Hao quickly pulled Ku Rokin towards the door. The Swordsman Service Center's notary office closes at 6:30. It's 6 now. There's less than half an hour left. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late. With that, the two of them sprinted towards the Swordsman Service Center. Chapter 7:11. You want to collect the form proving that you've been defeated. The notary of the Swordbearers Service Center was troubled when he heard LV Hao's request. If only you had come yesterday. I had more than 100 of these forms with me yesterday. But someone from the printing department came to me this morning and told me that there was an error in the printing of these forms. They need to collect all of them and will only return them to me in a few days. That's why I don't have a single form. How can this be? The news was like a bolt from the blue to Ku Rokin. After 19 defeats, Ku Rokin finally thought that he could see the light of victory. But he never expected that the light would be extinguished in the blink of an eye. It's you, isn't it? You're the one who's causing trouble in the dark, aren't you? You don't want me to get my hands on the Go Jian sword, right? Ku Rokin, who was on the verge of a mental breakdown, suddenly rushed to the notary's side and grabbed him by the collar. His expression was twisted, and he looked like a demon that had just crawled out of hell. Help! Help! The notary was frightened and shouted loudly. LV Hao immediately rushed forward and tried to pull Ku Rokin away, but Ku Rokin was using so much force that LV Hao was unable to pull him away. Brother LV Ren, wake up, Brother LV Ren. This matter has nothing to do with this notary. You can't hurt him, or something bad will happen. LV Hao was right. Something bad would happen if Ku Rokin did not let go of the notary. The commoners working in the Swordbearers Service Center were different from the commoners in the fourth ring. The commoners in the fourth ring could be settled with a single word from the Liu family. However, most of the normal people who worked in the Swordbearers Service Center were the Swordbearers' relatives, and they all had their Swordbearers' relatives standing behind them. If Ku Rokin harmed them, the disciplinary committee would definitely punish Ku Rokin severely to ensure that all the Swordbearers' relatives who worked there would be at ease. It was not like there had never been such a case in the past. Unfortunately, Ku Rokin, whose heart had been suppressed for a long time, was almost in a half-crazy state. Moreover, he was not as rational as Guhan, who could stop the car at the critical moment. Instead, he became even more crazy because of LV Hao's persuasion. Brother Lu Ren, let go of me. If you don't let go, don't blame me for offending you. When LV Hao said this, he had already made up his mind. If Ku Rokin did not release the notary, he would use the pure yang sword to attack Ku Rokin from behind. At the very least, he would knock him unconscious. How dare you? Who dares to make a move here? Just as LV Hao was about to make his move, a shout came from the door. This voice was so familiar to LV Hao that when he heard it, his body was like a mouse hearing a cat's meow. His entire body stiffened, and he turned around in a stupefied manner. He said very fearfully, "Master." Mph, you can't even handle a small matter properly. The man glared at LV How and slightly moved his finger to the left. Then, Jew Elvrin, who was about to strangle the notary's neck, flew up diagonally as if he had been slapped by something. In the end, he hit the wall of the notary's office heavily and broke a lot of things. Daddy! Shaw, who had been following behind Ku Rokin, screamed. She glared angrily at the man who had just walked in before jumping to Ku Rokin's side. She began to worry about Ku Rokin's condition. What's going on? Who is this kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? How dare he make a move in the Swordbearer Service Center? Don't tell me he's a Yuzhong dude from Yuzhong City. The man questioned LV How. Master, he's my friend. His name is Ku Rokin. He really is from Yuzhong City. LV How answered honestly. Hey, I was just speaking thoughtlessly, but I actually got it right. This kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth is actually a Yuzhong old man. Humph, go and inform the Discipline Commission for discipline inspection. Capture this person for me, and let the tiger's raw sword spirit personally come to redeem him. The man spoke the name of the tiger raw sword spirit as if he was speaking the name of an ordinary person. He didn't have the slightest bit of respect for the tiger raw sword spirit. Master, this person is your disciple's friend. Can you give your disciple some face and let my friend go? LV How was very loyal to his brother. He had only known Ku Rokin for less than half a day, but he was willing to go against his master's authority and plead for Ku Rokin. Didn't master tell you? You're not allowed to make friends with Yuzhong dude. Did you ignore master's words? LV Hao's master was even more displeased with LV Hao. Fine. Since he's your friend, then tell me why he attacked our notary. If you can give me a reasonable reason, I won't consider letting him off lightly. Yes, master. LV Hao told his master everything about his encounter with Ku Rokin. From how Ku Rokin challenged him to a duel, then defeated him, and tried to synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. He also told him about Ku Rokin's tough life as a challenger, as well as all sorts of bad luck. Even now, he still couldn't prove that he defeated the swordbearer on the list. That's why he went crazy and did this. Master, brother Lu Ren is too pitiful. He really did defeat me. Why don't you give him a chance and let him try synchronizing with the Yu King Gojian sword? He might not be able to do it anyway. LV Hao begged his master in a low voice. LV Hao begged his master in a low voice. It seemed that his master had a lot of say in the sword pavilion. He could actually give Jew Elvrin a chance to coordinate with the king of Yu, Gojian, without completing the necessary procedures. Nonsense, the rules were set by master. Do you want master to change it all the time? LV Hao's master scolded angrily. However, this revealed a very important piece of information. The order to make Ku Rokin run around was set by LV Hao's master. Didn't that mean that LV Hao's master was the new Sword Tower Lord of Yangjing City, Sword Immortal Tianheng? Yes, master. I know I was wrong. I really can't make master change his orders all the time. But master, please do me a favor and let brother Lu Ren go. Don't let him go to the Commission for Discipline Inspection. He didn't hurt this notary in any way, did he? LV Hao didn't give up the chance to plead on Ku Rokin's behalf. We'll talk about this later. Don't you think what happened to this Yuzhong dude is very strange? As far as I know, 11 of the 19 people on the list are in Yangjing City. He didn't see any of these 11 people, so in the end, he had to beg you. And I never said anything like that there was something wrong with the form and that I needed the printer to take it back and reprint it. But the printer took all of the forms back. Now that I think about it, all of this happened this morning. There's something wrong with this. There's a very big problem. Sword Immortal Tianheng thought about it for a moment and realized that something was wrong. But master, this doesn't make sense. All of this seems to be specifically targeting brother Lu Ren. It's as if someone just doesn't want brother Lu Ren to synchronize with the Yu King Gojian sword. But why? Brother Lu Ren just arrived in Yangjing City yesterday. He doesn't have any enemies or friends in Yangjing City. Who would spend so much effort to stop him? Lu Hao's words were very thought-provoking. That's what I'm curious about as well. To be able to get all 19 people to reject you at the same time, take away all of the forms from the notary office, and steal your forms while they're at it, the person behind this is no ordinary person. Only a few powers would be able to do something like this. The more Sword Immortal Tianheng thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. Because he was in charge of the Sword Pavilion, Sword Immortal Tianheng began to speculate. He felt that the person behind Ku Rokin might not be targeting Ku Rokin. Instead, they were targeting him, and Ku Rokin was merely a weapon. Once a person began to feel that someone was trying to harm them, then no matter how they thought about it, they would only become more and more convinced of their suspicions. Sword Immortal Tianheng was in such a situation. He felt that there was someone behind Ku Rokin who was plotting against him. Disciple, he really did defeat you, didn't he? Sword Immortal Tianheng suddenly asked. Yes, Brother Lu Ren's ancient sword rank sword mistress was especially powerful. It defeated your disciple, and your disciple wholeheartedly accepts his defeat, Lu Hao replied sincerely. That's good. Since he has already defeated you, then he's in accordance with the rules of the Sword Pavilion. It doesn't matter if he doesn't need a proof form or not. Bring him to the Sword Pavilion with me. Today, I'll have him coordinate with the king of you, Go Jian Jian. Sword Immortal Tianheng laughed coldly and said loudly. Yes, master. Lu Hao didn't expect such a dramatic turn of events. His master, who had just adamantly said that he wouldn't change his mind, suddenly agreed to Ku Rokin's request. Hence, LV Hao ran to Ku Rokin's side and shook Ku Rokin, who was dizzy and in pain all over his back, who felt as if his bones had been broken. LV Hao then told him excitedly, Bro Lu Ren, good news, my master has agreed to let you off the hook. You can come with us now. Not bad. The Sword Pavilion shouldn't be closed yet. When he stepped into Yangjing City again, he looked at the time on his personal terminal. It was already 6:30 p.m., and there was still half an hour before the Sword Pavilion closed. Gu Han had to rush to the Sword Pavilion immediately and put the Yu King Gojian sword into his pocket. The place where Gu Han entered the city was in the northwest corner of Yangjing City, located on the 4th ring road of Yangjing City. If he took the public transport system from here to the core area of Yangjing City, even if there was no traffic jam, it would still take more than an hour. It was impossible to reach Yangjing City within half an hour. Therefore, Gu Han had to think of a faster way to get there. P.S. The Sword Tower closes at 7 o'clock, half an hour later than the notary office. The Swordbearers Service Center doesn't close, but the notary office of the Swordbearers Service Center does. Chapter 712. BYD Maglev Flying Car Dealership. It was one of the most famous Maglev flying car dealerships in Yuzhong City. They had more than 60 branches in Yuzhong City, covering almost all areas from the core area to the 4th ring road. They were a veritable leader in the industry. However, even if they were the leader of the industry, their stores were usually deserted. Maglev flying cars were expensive things that ordinary people could not afford. Even if they could, it would be meaningless. Due to the narrow roads, except for the public transportation system, no private Maglev flying cars were allowed on the roads in Yangjing City. Once discovered, the driver's license would be revoked immediately, the car would be seized, and a huge fine would be imposed. Therefore, only swordbearers had a real need to shop. Only people like them, who were active outside the city every day, needed Maglev flying cars to increase their speed and escape at critical moments. The Maglev flying car dealership in the 4th ring road was located in a relatively remote area. It had only opened there because there was an entrance to Yangjing City's train station. Perhaps some swordbearers from other cities would come here and have the urge to buy a Maglev flying car. Generally speaking, this Maglev flying car dealership would only make 1 or 2 deals a week. However, it had been a tragedy recently. Yuzhong City had been under attack, and the Yuzhong people had not been to Yangjing City for more than 40 days. The business of this BYD Maglev flying car dealership had naturally plummeted. It had been a whole month without a single deal. It was said that the store manager had begun to consider layoffs. He planned to lay off half of the 4 employees in the store, leaving only 2 employees to sweep the floor and clean the cars. The 4 employees were anxious. If they could make a deal at this time, the store manager would have no reason to fire them. Therefore, when Guhan, who looked a little anxious and dressed in ordinary clothes, arrived at the maglev flying car dealership, the 4 employees greeted him enthusiastically and rushed to introduce their maglev flying cars to Guhan. "Sir, please take a look at this BMW 2950. This is a classic BMW maglev flying car model developed in 2950. It has been selling well for 50 years, with sales of up to 8,000 units and a cumulative mileage of more than 40 billion kilometers. This is definitely your best choice," one of the employees introduced, spitting out saliva. He was telling the truth, but think about it. What's a 50-year-old maglev flying car? An antique. As the salesperson introduced the hovercraft to Guhan, he frantically wiped the dust off the hovercraft with a rag. It was obvious that the hovercraft hadn't been cleaned for a while. Maintaining the cleanliness of the vehicles on display was a daily task for the salesperson. Yet, this hovercraft was covered in a thick layer of dust. One could imagine that in the salesperson's eyes, this hovercraft was no different from garbage. "Sir, don't judge this car by its age, but it is indeed a classic model. The most important thing is that it's cheap. Other hovercrafts cost at least 1 million, but if you buy this one, it won't cost more than 200,000. 200,000 for a hovercraft. You won't lose out, and you won't be fooled. What are you hesitating for?" The salesperson's saliva flew everywhere as he introduced the hovercar, as if Guhan would miss out on the best deal in the world if he didn't buy it. "What's the maximum speed of this hovercraft? What's the instantaneous reaction time difference?" Guhan suddenly asked. There wasn't much to explain about the maximum speed, but the reaction time difference did need to be explained. The so-called reaction time difference referred to the time needed for Guhan to give the hovercraft a command, and then the hovercraft to complete the command. Take a car before the apocalypse as an example. When the driver turned the steering wheel to make a turn, the car naturally couldn't immediately complete the turn according to the driver's intention. From turning the steering wheel to moving smoothly into the other lane, the entire process would take a few seconds to 10 seconds. This was the reaction time difference. The same principle applied to maglev hovercraft. The maximum speed is 600 km per hour. Under stable driving conditions, the reaction time difference for a 180-degree turn is 4 seconds. In drift mode, it takes 1.2 seconds, the salesperson quickly reported. In other words, this hovercraft would need 4 seconds to complete a 180-degree turn, and that was the time needed for stable driving conditions. If it was in drift mode, it would only take 1.2 seconds. Compared to the cars of pre-Great Calamity times, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. However, this data was worlds apart from the data that Gu Han wanted in his heart. "Wait. It's too slow. This won't do." Guhan waved his hand and left the hovercraft. "Sir, take a look at this one." Next, another salesperson brought Guhan to look at another hovercraft. Guhan only glanced at it briefly. He could tell from the feeling that the 2 hovercrafts weren't much different in quality. They were both cheap, ordinary goods. They couldn't possibly meet the standards that Guhan needed. "I don't have time to waste on you. Tell me immediately, do you have a hovercraft with a maximum speed of more than 1,000 km per hour and a 360-degree reaction time difference of less than 0.7 seconds in drift mode?" Guhan quickly reported a set of data to the salesperson. The 4 shop assistants looked at each other with disdain on their faces. One of the salespeople advised, "Sir, the data you're talking about is something that can only be achieved by a super maglev sports car. Cars cost tens of millions of yuan. I think you should shut up. Just tell me if you have one or not. You don't have to tell me how much it cost." Guhan glared at the salesperson. The salesperson seemed to have been bitten by an invisible force. His whole body trembled in fear, and his lower body felt a little wet. Yes. The salesperson jumped up and ran back into his office. He quickly ran out again and handed a booklet to Guhan. The booklet had a very eye-catching picture of a super maglev sports car printed on it. Guhan recognized it at a glance. It was the Yang Huang 3008 Super Maglev sports car that Liuonian Ling had used to transport him when he left Chongyang Mountain. If it was this Super Maglev sports car, it would be perfect for Guhan's purposes. Yes, I'll buy this one. Where is it? Guhan asked immediately. Ayo, sir, what a coincidence. Don't you know that because our 4S shop is located in a remote area, we don't usually have expensive things like the Yang Huang 3008 Super Maglev sports car. But it just so happens that a few days ago, a sports car that was transported to Yuzhong City is temporarily stored here. We originally planned to load it into an armored maglev train and send it to Yuzhong City tomorrow. If you want it, we'll give it to you first. When the salesperson heard that Guhan wanted to buy the Yang Huang 3008, he immediately perked up and eagerly introduced it to Guhan. Bring me there immediately. Under Guhan's command, the salesperson brought Guhan to the 4S shop's warehouse. In the innermost parking space, Guhan saw the Yang Huang 3008 Super Maglev sports car. This sports car was indeed going to be sent to Yuzhong City. Therefore, the entire sports car was wrapped up. One could only see its shape through the packaging. Guhan immediately walked forward and tore off the door of the Super Maglev sports car. Just by looking at the door, Guhan was very sure that this was indeed the Yang Huang 3008. How much does this car cost? Guhan quickly asked the salesperson. That depends on how you want to buy it. If you don't have much money, we can provide 36 years of installment payment. The down payment is 30 million renminbi, and then 1 million renminbi every year. In total, you only need 66 million renminbi to bring this Yang Huang 3008 home. It's a very, very good deal. If you intend to pay in full, then it will only be 60 million renminbi. But this does not include the license fee, purchase tax, vehicle and vessel tax, road maintenance tax, and so on. Altogether, it's less than 10 million renminbi. If you're sure you want to buy it, I'll help you with the procedures. Don't worry, you'll be able to drive this Yang Huang 3008 home in less than 3 days. The salesperson was elated. He could be considered an old hand, and he could see that Guhan really wanted to buy this car. At the same time, he also knew that car buyers hated waiting for too long. However, the Yang Huang 3008 was too expensive, and there were many procedures required. 3 days was the limit of what he could do. 3 days. Guhan silently repeated the time. Get in the car and experience it first. Feel the space in the driver's seat. Guhan asked hurriedly. Of course. You can feel it as you like. Guhan's request was very normal. Anyone who bought a car would want to experience it in the driver's seat, so the salesperson did not take it seriously. Instead, he warmly invited Guhan to enter the driver's seat. As soon as Guhan sat in the driver's seat, he found that the key to this maglev car was inserted into the steering wheel. Generally speaking, the key would not be inserted directly into the steering wheel. However, this super sports car was prepared to be sent to Yuzhong City, so the person who packed it directly left the key inside. This was to avoid being unable to find the key once they reached Yuzhong City, so this gave Guhan an opportunity to take advantage of. Little brother, come here for a moment. Guhan waved at the salesperson, and the salesperson took the initiative to come to Guhan's side. He asked eagerly, Sir, what do you need? I don't need anything. I just hope that you can bring me the public terminal in your store. I want to see how much money I have left in my personal terminal, Guhan said. All right. Although he did not understand what Guhan wanted the public terminal for, the salesperson quickly brought the public terminal in front of Guhan. Ding dong. The cash has been transferred. The amount is 70 million renminbi. Please check. The public terminal was moved in front of Guhan, and Guhan quickly touched his personal terminal to the public terminal. Immediately, the salesperson found that a huge sum of money had been transferred into the account. Sir, this money is not right. You don't have to pay in a hurry. Besides, this is a few 100,000 more. Just as the shop assistant was about to warn Ji Yuhan, he suddenly heard a loud engine roar. The packaging near the chassis of the maglev car was burned through by 8 high-pressure magnetic energy beams. Then, the Yang Huang 3008 Super Maglev sports car rose to a height of 3 meters in front of the shop assistant. Then, like an arrow released from a bow, it shot out of the shop assistant's sight, forever disappearing from the shop assistant's sight. Chapter 713. October 21st, 3008 AD. This was an unforgettable day for everyone in the transportation department of the Yangjing City Council. Because on this afternoon, on the road from the 4th Ring Road to the core area, the most appalling car racing incident in Yangjing City in the past 100 years took place. The first report to the transportation department was at 1835, reporting that a big white super maglev sports car flashed in front of him at a super speed of more than 1,000 km/h near the 4th Ring Road train station. At first, the transportation department only thought it was a deliberate prank. Racing at 1,000 km/h in Yangjing City? Wasn't that courting death? Crashing into a building would result in the car being destroyed and people dying. Even a professional racer would not dare to do such a crazy thing. However, only a minute later, the next eyewitness report was sent to the transportation department. A young couple reported to the transportation department in horror. When they were walking on the side of the road, they suddenly felt a strong wind pressure, and then saw a white shadow flash past them. Then, the young couple's clothes were completely torn from the chest down, as if they had been cut by a sharp knife. Even their bodies were left with a bloody mark. This is wind pressure. An old man from the transportation department jumped up in surprise. If a super maglev sports car can produce wind pressure that is enough to cut clothes when it's traveling at more than 1,000 km/h, is there really someone racing at 1,000 km/h on the 4th Ring Road? At this time, the transportation department of Yangjing City did not quite believe these things, but within a minute, 5 buses sent them reports at the same time. The contents of the reports were almost exactly the same. They all said that they saw a white shadow flash on the road, and then the entire maglev bus was pushed a meter or two away by the strong wind pressure. There were also 2 or 3 passengers who fell on the bus because they lost their balance and were bleeding from their heads. Therefore, the transportation department of Yangjing City finally began to pay attention to this report. They mobilized all the surveillance cameras in the 4th Ring Road in an attempt to find the white ghost. However, along the way, according to the route reported by the bus driver, the surveillance cameras never found the white shadow. Could it be a scam? You bunch of idiots, stop searching 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. If he really is traveling at a speed of 1,000 km/h, you'll have to search for the surveillance cameras at a speed of 100 km/h. A big shot from the Ministry of Transportation spoke, and the staff suddenly realized what was going on. They began to move the surveillance cameras in front of them even faster. Finally, they found the white shadow near the intersection of the 3rd Ring Road. A high-definition camera had captured the shadow. Take a screenshot and analyze the origin of this super maglev sports car. Also, deploy 100 high-definition cameras to monitor this crazy guy. The big boss of the Ministry of Transportation ordered sternly. Immediately, the surveillance footage of the entire Ministry of Transportation began to be mobilized. The surveillance cameras that were originally used to monitor various locations in the city were all adjusted to the scene of the white superior driving on the road. Under such intense surveillance, the white shadow finally revealed itself. Sure enough, a big white super maglev sports car was racing on the streets of the 4th Ring Road at more than 1,000 km/h. Although the roads in the city were a little narrow, there were no private cars, only a few public buses. Therefore, the road conditions were still very good. This super cool sports car only needed to avoid the public buses and the people on the roadside to maintain its high speed. Surprisingly, when it overtook these maglev buses, the super cool sports car showed no signs of slowing down. Instead, it turned its body vertically and sped along the edge of the buses. No wonder its wind pressure was able to blow the buses 1 or 2 meters away. Damn it! Deploy all the traffic police in the area immediately. We must force this guy to stop. Seeing this scene, the big boss of the Ministry of Transportation was furious. This was a complete provocation to the Ministry of Transportation. If they did not force this damn guy to stop, they would lose face. Boss, we can't catch up. A staff member reported to the big boss. The traffic police nearby are quite a distance away from him. By the time the traffic police arrive, he will have already left. Our people won't be able to catch up with him. Then set up a roadblock in front of me and block his way. The brain immediately responded. But boss, how do we know where he is going? The staff member asked again. Look at his driving route. He must be heading to the junction between the 4th and 3rd rings. Set up a roadblock there. You must stop him. Never let him enter the 3rd ring. Yes. All the staff members roared in unison. They were also angered by the crazy white ghost. Boss, the white ghost is approaching the entrance of the 2nd ring. 15 minutes later, all the staff members of the Ministry of Transportation widened their eyes and stared at the surveillance cameras. Their neat work clothes were all thrown to the ground, revealing the white shirts underneath. The collars of these shirts were all open, and the entire shirt was soaked. As a government department, the council had a strict dress code for its civil servants. Behavior such as throwing away work clothes, revealing shirts, and unbuttoning shirts would be severely punished. If not, they might even be fired. But now, no one cared about this. Everyone, including the big boss, was in the same situation because they had all been driven crazy by the white ghost. Sweat poured out of their bodies like a fountain. If they did not take off their work clothes, these civil servants would probably suffocate to death. Very good. Is the super large construction excavator here? Is it blocking the intersection? The big boss asked through gritted teeth. The blockade at the 3rd ring had completely failed. A total of 8 police hovercrafts were blocking the way, but the white shadow completely ignored them. It used its extreme speed to smash through all 8 hovercrafts, and forcibly rushed out of the encirclement and into the 3rd ring road. Fortunately, there were always more buses in the 3rd ring than in the 4th ring. The white ghost was driving on the main road, which had about 20 buses passing by every minute. The density of the buses forced the white ghost to reduce its speed from the initial 1,000 km per hour to 700 km per hour. This gave the Ministry of Transport enough time to mobilize a super-large construction vehicle from a construction site at the entrance of the 2nd ring road. This construction vehicle weighed more than 3,000 tons. If the white ghost dared to rampage like before, then the Ministry of Transport would see a living human meat pie. Levitating vehicles on the road, listen up. You have seriously violated Yangjing City's traffic laws. Please pull over immediately and accept our inspection. Please pull over immediately and accept our inspection. The road ahead is blocked. You can't pass. Please stop immediately and accept our inspection. In the sky above the white cloud, a police helicopter was circling, constantly shouting at the white ghost, hoping it would stop. Unfortunately, it was destined to be useless. Finally, the white ghost arrived at the entrance of the 2nd ring road. The heavy construction excavator had blocked the intersection, so it was impossible for the white ghost to ram through like it did at the 3rd ring road. Hey, do you guys think the white ghost can still ram through? A staff member who was observing the surveillance asked. That's impossible. He can drive through the gap between the undercarriage and the ground in the tracks of this heavy construction excavator. It's just that the height is only 3 meters, and the lowest height of the Yanghuang 3008 is 3.1 meters. There's no way he can get through it, another worker said. Hearing this, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Finally, they could subdue the white ghost. But very quickly, the person who spoke was slapped hard in the face. This was because the white ghost did not slow down in the face of the heavy construction excavator. Instead, as the staff member had guessed at the beginning, it forcibly rushed through the gap between the chassis and the ground. That's impossible. It can only be compressed to at least 3.1 meters. It's impossible for it to rush through. The staff member who spoke just now said to himself in disbelief. When the white ghost appeared in the surveillance of the 2nd ring road, the team members were surprised to find that the upper half of the white ghost was missing a large piece, revealing the interior decorations of the driver's compartment and the bright red color under the white skin. Yes. It's only 0.1 meters higher. The driver only needs to abandon the 0.1 meters of the roof and he can pass through the excavator's territory. I didn't think of such a simple thing. I'm really too stupid. The staff member finally found the answer to the question, but it was all too late. The white ghost had already rushed into the second ring road. I recognize it. This is the Yang Huang 3008. This interior decoration is definitely the Yang Huang 3008. A staff member screamed loudly. Previously, they had carefully studied the screenshots of the white ghost, but no matter what, they could not identify the model of the white ghost. It was only after the interior decoration was exposed that they recognized it as the Yang Huang 3008. But why is it white? I can guarantee that among the three colors of the Yang Huang 3008, there is definitely no white. Who knows? Can't people buy it and spray paint it white in the future? Alright, stop arguing about such meaningless things. In another 5 minutes, it will rush into the entrance of the core area. If we let this car rush into the core area, we will lose completely. The big boss of the transportation department roared angrily. In the end, this matter could not be covered up. The other big bosses of the council had already been calling him continuously to ask what had happened. If the white ghost was allowed to enter the core area, then his future in the transportation department would be completely ruined. How do we block it? There are no heavy vehicles in the vicinity that can block the road. If we still use the police hover car to block it, then we will just be playing bowling. Then close the door. The big boss of the transportation department glared with a pair of blood-white eyes. Close the door to the core area immediately. I don't believe that he has the ability to rush in through the door made of dimensional alloy. But boss, closing the door requires the approval of the sword committee. This is against the procedures. Who cares about the procedures? At most, I will resign and close the door immediately. The big boss shouted crazily. Report. The door to the core area has been closed. Other than the pedestrian crossing, not a single car can enter the core area. At this time, all the staff of the transportation department stopped their tasks at hand. They stared at the white ghost, wanting to see what it would do after realizing that the door was closed. Would it turn around and find another way, or would it stop and dismount and accept the punishment of the law? Finally, the white ghost appeared under the surveillance camera of the core area's door. However, it did not show any signs of slowing down. It was as if it could not see that the door was closed and continued to rush toward the door. Does this person not want to live anymore? So he wants to go crazy one last time and commit suicide? Many of the staff made such a guess, but some of them felt that the white ghost would not commit suicide just like that. It must have a way to pass through the door of the core area. 1 kilometer, 500 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters. The white ghost kept approaching the door of the core area. In fact, even if it tried to slow down, it would be useless. It was destined to hit the door and become a pile of minced meat. Go to hell. The big boss clenched his fists tightly, praying that the guy who ruined his future would die here. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. When the white ghost was 10 meters away from the door, everyone felt their vision blur. The white ghost seemed to disappear for a moment. When it appeared again, it had already passed through the door of the core area and appeared on the streets of the core area. Pa. The big boss slumped on the chair weakly. His limbs were weak, and his eyes were unfocused. He muttered to himself, "This is not a human, it's a ghost, a ghost. It's Yuan Ku." Chapter 714. Pavilion Master. Sword Immortal Tian Hen led Ku Rokin and LV Hao into the Sword Pavilion. Upon seeing Sword Immortal Tian Hen, all of the attendants bowed their heads in greeting. Sword Immortal Tian Hen only nodded indifferently. He didn't give them any extra expression. Instead, he walked over to Yu King Gojian's side. Take him. Sword Immortal Tian Hen was just about to instruct the attendants when his personal gadget suddenly rang. He accepted the call on his personal gadget and said a few words to the person on the other end. His expression instantly darkened. Be ****. What the hell is this white ghost? There are only a few hundred people in your Department of Transportation, and you're allowing a stupid car to wreak havoc in Yangjing City? You still have the face to report this to me? Sword Immortal Tien Hen paused. Then, after hearing what the person on the other end said, his expression became a little strange. You're saying that white ghost stopped in front of the Swordbearer's service center? What? He ignored the service center's security and parked his car in front of my sword pavilion. What the F***CK? F***CK. Sword Immortal Tien Hen let loose a string of expletives in a very down-to-earth manner. You guys, go to the first floor right now and capture that guy who dares to break into the sword pavilion. I want to see just what kind of B***starred has the guts to do this. Sword Immortal Tien Hen instructed the two sword-wielding guards beside him. These two sword-wielding guards were both famed sword-rank sword-wielding guards. They were the most elite sword-wielding guards aside from the 5 spirit sword-rank sword-wielding guards. The two of them received their orders and immediately went down from the 3rd floor to capture that audacious bastard. Open the glass case and hand Yu King Go Jian's sword to this Yuzhang dude. Even in front of Ku Rokin, Sword Immortal Tien Hen didn't hesitate to use the insulting term Yuzhang dude to refer to Ku Rokin. Ku Rokin's expression was ashen. However, the difference in power between him and the Yu King Go Jian's sword prevented him from saying anything unnecessary. He could only suppress the humiliation in his heart and slowly reach out to grab the Yu King Go Jian's sword. Wait. Just like in novels, at this critical moment, a voice exploded in Ku Rokin's ears. Ku Rokin instinctively shrunk back, but he quickly reacted. Not only did he not retreat, he even grabbed the Yu Wang Gojian sword even faster. When Zhu Elvren's hand was less than 1 centimeter away from the hilt of the King of Yu's Gojian sword, a transparent and vigorous sword chi slashed on the display case containing the King of Yu's Gojian sword. The entire display case instantly shattered into pieces. Suffering the impact of the force, the Yu King Gojian sword also flew into the air, flying towards the direction where the sword chi had come from. Get back here. Sword Immortal Tien Hen's face was livid. He waved his sword, and the sword of Yu King Gojian, which was about to fly away, changed direction in midair and landed in Sword Immortal Tien Hen's hand. Who is so daring? How dare you behave atrociously in my sword pavilion? Do you believe that I won't transfer you to the Shanhai Pass today? Sword Immortal Tien Hen roared. A gust of wind blew past, and a white figure landed in front of Sword Immortal Tien Hen. This junior has offended Sword Immortal Tien Hen. This junior deserves to die 10,000 times over. Please forgive me, my lord. This person immediately apologized to Sword Immortal Tien Hen as soon as he landed. At the very least, Sword Immortal Tien Hen's expression improved a little. At this moment, the 2 famed swordbearers that Sword Immortal Tien Hen had sent out hurriedly ran back. They apologized to Sword Immortal Tien Hen first. We were incompetent. We failed to capture this criminal who dared to trespass into the sword pavilion. We have caused the pavilion master to suffer. You're just a famed sword-rank sword wielder. Do you really think you can scare me? Sword Immortal Tien Hen turned around and scolded the 2 famed sword-rank sword wielder. What else could they say? They could only laugh bitterly in their hearts, mocking themselves for being so unlucky. Who are you? How dare you trespass into Yangjing City's sword pavilion? Sword Immortal Tien Hen turned to the man who was apologizing to him. He looked at the man's face and felt that he looked a little familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. How could it be you? Ku Rokin was shocked when he saw the man's appearance. The man who had appeared before him was Gu Han. Why had he suddenly appeared here? He had even destroyed the counter of the King of Yu's Go Jian sword, and had even tried to snatch the King of Yu's Go Jian sword from his hands. This junior is Yuzhang City's Sword Immortal Gu Han. Greetings, Sword Immortal Tien Hen. Gu Han stood up and said to Sword Immortal Tien Hen, "You're Gu Han." Upon hearing the name Gu Han, Sword Immortal Tien Hen finally connected this person to a name in his memory. That's right, this person was the previous Yuzhang City Sword Pavilion Master, Gu Han, who had brought shame to all the Sword Pavilion Masters of the 8 base cities. Sword Immortal Tien Hen was extremely enraged by this. Ever since he had become a sword wielder, Sword Immortal Tien Hen had set becoming the Sword Pavilion Lord as his life's greatest goal, and he viewed the Sword Pavilion Lord as the most sacred occupation in the world. Therefore, when he finally took over the position of Sword Pavilion Master from his master, he was so happy that people around him said that Sword Immortal Tien Hen hadn't scolded anyone for 3 or 4 days. However, this rumor was soon shattered by a guy named Guhan. This guy was actually the Yuzhang Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master, who was also a Sword Pavilion Master. However, Sword Immortal Tien Hen was extremely dissatisfied with the fact that this guy called Ji Yu Han had taken over the position of Sword Pavilion Lord from his master when he was only a treasured sword rank cultivator, becoming the Sword Pavilion Lord of Yuzhang City. This made Sword Immortal Tien Hen feel as if he had become a joke. He had spent his entire life scheming, expended his entire life's blood and sweat, dodged countless arrows, laid countless traps for others, and escaped from the brink of death countless times. After over 40 years of bloodshed, Sword Immortal Tien Hen had finally become the Pavilion Lord of the Sword Pavilion. But what did this Guhan have to sacrifice? Apparently, he had only been a sword wielder for less than 4 months. He had only spent 1/120 of his own blood and sweat, yet he was able to sit in the same position as Sword Immortal Tien Hen. Thus, Sword Immortal Tien Hen was extremely dissatisfied with Ji Yu Han as soon as he heard the news. What happened next was even more infuriating to Sword Immortal Tien Hen. This Guhan had actually passed the position of Sword Pavilion Master to a little girl who had just turned 18 years old. And this girl was not even a sword bearer. She was just an ordinary person. Sword Immortal Tien Hen was enraged to the extreme. He felt like his 40 years of hard work was nothing compared to luck. A little girl had become the Sword Pavilion Lord of Yuzhang City without doing anything at all. She hadn't contributed anything at all, yet she was now in charge of all the sword maidens in the entire city just because a certain person had done something to vent his anger. How could Sword Immortal Tien Hen not be enraged? If it weren't for the fact that he was a sword immortal and that Guhan was only a famed sword bearer, Sword Immortal Tien Hen would have challenged Guhan to a duel. I was wondering who it was. How dare he trespass into Yangjing City's Sword Pavilion? So it's the previous Yuzhang City Sword Pavilion Master who has never taken the Sword Pavilion seriously. Our great famed sword bearer, Master Guhan, Sword Immortal Tien Hen said in a sarcastic tone. You're such a daring former Sword Pavilion Master. You destroyed our display case as soon as you came to Yangjing City. Are you here to challenge us? I wouldn't dare. I just accidentally smashed your Sword Pavilion's display case. I admit my mistake and am willing to accept any punishment from Yangjing City's Sword Pavilion, Guhan said in an indifferent voice. Good. You're the one who said it. Accept my punishment. Sword Immortal Tien Hen chuckled coldly. Get the F***ck out of here and don't ever appear before me again. Remember, F***ck, out. Sword Immortal Tien Hen paused on the word F***ck. Clearly, he wanted Guhan to roll away from this place. If Guhan did that, he would become a complete joke. Sword Immortal Tien Hen, you've misunderstood. I'm talking about the rules of Yangjing City's Sword Pavilion, not your punishment. Guhan chuckled. Sword Immortal Tien Hen, may I ask, according to the rules of Yangjing City's Sword Pavilion, what is the punishment for destroying the Sword Pavilion's public property? Yes. Sword Immortal Tien Hen was suddenly stumped. Although he was the Sword Pavilion Master, he had never had a detailed understanding of the Sword Pavilion's punishments. How would he know what punishment he would have to bear for destroying the Sword Pavilion's public property? Pavilion Master. According to the rules, if you destroy the Sword Pavilion's public property but don't cause any damage to the Sword Maiden, you'll have to pay 10 times the original price, a famed sword rank swordsman whispered to Sword Immortal Tien Hen. Sword Immortal Tien Hen was speechless. How much could a small counter be worth? Even if it was 10 times the original price, it still wouldn't amount to much to a swordsman. No wonder he dared to say that he would be punished according to the Sword Pavilion's rules. It turned out that he had been lying in ambush here. This person was extremely detestable. Guhan will properly apologize to Sword Immortal Tien Hen for this matter later. Seeing Tien Hen's expression, Guhan knew that Sword Immortal Tien Hen already understood that he wouldn't make things difficult for him over such a small matter. Thus, he tactfully dropped the topic. Instead, He expressed that he would personally apologize to Sword Immortal Tien Hen, and this would be the end of the topic. However, from Sword Immortal Tien Hen's attitude toward him, Gu Han could sense the fury in Sword Immortal Tien Hen's tone. He also knew where this fury was coming from. However, Gu Han had never regretted the decisions he had made. Thus, he had to bear the consequences of his decisions. Senior Sword Immortal Tien Hen, I'm not here for anything else. I just want to make a deal with you, Gu Han said calmly. A deal? What kind of deal do you want to make with me? Could it be that you want to sell the position of Yuzhang City's Sword Pavilion Lord to me? Sword Immortal Tien Hen looked at Gu Han mockingly. Then, he feigned a look of sudden realization. Oh, I remember now. You wanted to take this Yu King Gojian sword, didn't you? Sword Immortal Tien Hen placed the Yu King Gojian sword in front of Gu Han. He even intentionally shook it a little. He smiled and asked, Yuzhang City's previous Sword Pavilion Lord. Is this what you want to make a deal with me? That's right. Gu Han nodded. I wish to exchange something for the Yu King Gojian sword. From now on, the Yu King Gojian sword belongs to our Yuzhang City's Sword Pavilion. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,